Jin Yong was a failed baseball player working in a factory until a legendary pitcher's ghost gave him a magical system that could make him stronger. Even though his pitches were slow and weak, he gained perfect control that let him strike out anyone who faced him. Starting from company games to the professional league, Jin Yong became famous for his woo celebration and trash-talking opponents on the mound. However, before all this, at the Seoul home stadium, Jin Yong heads out to the pitcher's mound when someone decides to tease him a little bit by asking him if he is feeling nervous. Jin Yong replies that he needs to stop talking so much because he has to save his throat so that he can yell loudly after he strikes someone out just like he usually does. In the world of professional baseball, every single year there are thousands and thousands of high school athletes who participate and try out in the draft hoping to make it big. Unfortunately, not even 10% of all those players actually end up wearing the official uniform of a professional baseball team. However, the sad reality is that the majority of the players who don't actually get called up to become professional players end up suffering from serious injuries that are so bad that they cannot be healed properly. However, there is someone who has numerous injuries along with economic difficulties put down the baseball he was holding and left the ground. Jin Yong's father sends him meals 3 times a day and now he sent him more than that, gloves, spikes and various baseball-related things. Jin Yong grabs the ball and feels weird because it's been around 6 years since he put a ball between his thumbs. 3 days ago, Jin Yong's boss asked him why he didn't tell him that he was a former baseball player because he wants him to participate in upcoming match. However, Jin Yong explains that it has already been 6 years since he stopped playing because of an old injury, so he says he can't take part in the match anymore. Jin Yong's boss doesn't accept that and insists that he must participate, even going as far as calling someone to raise the amount of their bet. In the present time, Jin Yong thinks about throwing away all his old baseball gear right after the game on Saturday, but then his eyes stop on Kim Jin-ho's signed ball. Kim Jin-ho was a legendary player who earned 251 victories in only 11 seasons, and with just his fastballs and unshakable spirit, he ruled over the major leagues. To the younger Jin Yong, Kim Jin-ho had always been a bright hero on the mound, someone who seemed like he would never fade away, but as always, life turned out to have its own unexpected twists. 10 years ago, he passed away at the age of 31 due to a traffic accident, and at his funeral, he cried because of someone's death for the first time. Suddenly, there is a blackout in Jin Yong's house and he tries to find a flashlight, but then Kim Jin-ho's ghost appears out of that signed ball, which shocks Jin Yong. A notification window then appears in front of Jin Yong, saying baseball managers have started. The system shows Jin Yong's details and tells him that he has 1 ticket for the bronze roulette. It then shows the amount of points that would need to spin the roulette. Seeing that, Kim Jin-ho starts acting weird and laughs at Jin Yong's stats because they are so low, but Jin Yong tells him to be quiet as he is already stressed. Jin Yong then yells at him that suddenly a ghost appears in front of him and then a stuff like a game status window. He can't talk normally. Jin-ho then asks him if he is a fan of him, as his name used to be the Silent Assassin during the first season in the major leagues. Hearing that, Jin Yong quickly says yes, and he made sure to watch every single game of him. Jin-ho then decides to ask him for a quiz about it, saying during the Oakland game the opposing team batter was saying something bad about him or his parents, so he threatened him. Jin Yong then says that then he strikes him out, and that's how he got the nickname the Silent Assassin. However, Jin-ho tells him to test out the baseball manager thing of his system window. Jin Yong decides to check out and activates the bronze roulette. The system then asks Jin Yong if he would like to spin the roulette, but Jin Yong thinks that the chance that he gets a gold skill is 1%, but he still tries it. The next day, Jin Yong goes to his baseball game where the department head from his company asks if he used to be an athlete because of how fit he looks. The man also says that since it's been 6 years since his injury, it should be healed by now. After that, Jin Yong gets ready to pitch, while his boss secretly thinks that Jin Yong is going to embarrass himself today. On the field, Jin Yong takes his position and tries to throw a fastball, but it ends up being a slow one that the catcher easily grabs. Seeing this, everyone assumes Jin Yong just needs to warm up, but when he throws the next pitch, it comes out much better than before. The catcher tells Jin Yong that he likes his form and where the ball lands, but says it's just too slow, then tells him to take a break and get some rest. However, Jin Yong feels upset being treated like this even in a simple neighborhood baseball game, realizing that this is the limit of what he can do now. He starts thinking that he could never make it as a pro again, but then Jin-ho tells him that he actually throws better than he expected. Jin-ho explains that his old coach once saw real potential in him, since for a high school baseball coach, the most important thing is spotting players who might go pro one day. Just then, Jin Yong suddenly sees a baseball team with numbers floating above their heads, and Jin-ho explains that he can collect those points to use for spinning roulettes. Afterward, another team's match begins, and one of their batters hits 3 home runs in a row. The coach thinks that the player must have taken a break from baseball because of an injury. He also hears that the player is going to join the Goyang Stars, an independent league team, and getting accepted there basically means he's already at a pro level. Meanwhile, Jinho wonders why someone that skilled is even playing in a company baseball game. Seeing this, Jin-young gets nervous and decides to pray since he feels like he can't face a player like that. As the game goes on, everyone on the batter's team reminds him that Junhyang already gave them 3 home runs, so they tell him to stay calm and keep his focus. However, the pitcher throws 3 base-on-balls in a row, which makes Jin-young's boss furious. Finally, Junhyang gets back to the field again, and this time, the boss decides to send Jin-young as a pitcher, saying he should not let them have a single point because if he does, he won't be coming to office tomorrow. Jin-young then gets to the field and asks Jinho for advice, but Jinho tells him not to throw a 100 miles per hour ball, nor a slider or a changeup. Seeing Jin-young throw, the other team thinks that he is pretty good at throwing ball, but he won't last long against Junhyang. Jinho then concludes that he has no idea at all what kind of advice he should give to him, but he suggests and recommends that he should test out and try the skill that he got from the roulette game last night. The previous night, Jin-young got and received the perspective change skill from the roulette game. Back in present, Jin-young finally activated his baseball manager system for the first time. The system then informs and tells Jin-young that he can earn and collect bonus points if he manages to strike out a batter, and it turns out that the points on the batter's head are actually 350, which is super high for the system. Jin-young then thinks to himself inside his own mind that Junhyang has never seen his pitching before in the past, which gives him a big advantage over the batter. He throws the ball with all his strength, and it lands perfectly as a strike right in the zone. Junhyang notices that Jin-young's pitching form and timing are definitely different from the others, so he decides to let the next ball pass on purpose. However, Jinho tells Jin-young that Junhyang is planning to miss another ball and says he will give him some advice. Jinho explains that being tall is usually an advantage for a pitcher, but for a batter, it's the opposite because the taller they are, the bigger their strike zone becomes. Finally, Jin-young decides to use his perspective change ability. The system then displays to Jin-young a window which says that he will use up 3 stamina points and be able to throw the ball to exactly where he wants it to go. Jin-young can now notice a moving target that shines like a bright star on the department head's mitt right in front of him. Afterward, Jin-young throws a fastball with all his power that Junhyang misses completely and swings through, and the referee calls it a strike right away. Seeing that amazing pitch happen, Jin-young's boss and other colleagues start cheering loudly for him, and they are even ready to give him free drinks if they manage to win this game today against the other team. On the other hand, Jin-young realizes that the ball goes in the same exact course without a single ounce or bit of error at all. He accepts that everything he gets from the system is actually real now and not just a dream or his imagination. Jinho then asks Jin-young if he is going to throw another one with the same course, and Jin-young is planning to catch him off guard. Afterward, Jin-young throws another ball the way he wanted, but surprisingly Junhyang hits the ball, but it gets a foul. Junhyang then wonders that no matter how hard Jin-young attacks the corners, he can hit a ball that he can see. However, Jin-young starts to feel real fear on the mound for the first time in 6 years. But then, Jinho tells him that Junhyang will easily hit almost any pitch now, no matter if it's 10 kilometers or 100 kilometers. He advises Jin-young to think carefully and use his brain to figure out how to beat a batter who actually wants to hit his weak pitches. Hearing that, Jin-young realizes that the fastest ball he can throw only reaches the mid-100 km range, and the only way to defeat a monster who wants to crush such slow pitches at his level is by doing one thing. Jin-young then throws a curveball, and it flies cleanly into the catcher's mitt, which leaves the stadium silent for a minute before Jinho whispers Jin-young about third base. Jin-young quickly tells the catcher to throw the ball to third base, and the catcher reacts fast, making the throw right away. With that move, all 3 runners get out one after another. In the end, Jin-young's team wins the match, and everyone rushes toward him, cheering and celebrating his victory. However, right then, the system notifies Jin-young that his bonus points have been added, and he even receives some extra rewards on top of that. Later that evening, the coach of the Goyang Stars meets with Yunseo, the operations leader of the Seoul Angels, who asks him where Junhyang is. Just then, someone gets a phone call saying that Junhyang lost to a new pitcher, which leaves everyone shocked. Later that night, Junhyang breaks down in the training grounds while Jin-young is celebrating his victory with his office workers. The next day, Jin-young tells Jinho clearly that he is done with baseball and will not play anymore, even though he has something as amazing as the baseball manager system with him. Hearing that news, Jinho gets upset with his decision, but Jin-young explains that his family's well-being and safety is at stake here. He further adds that if he quits his job right now to play baseball instead, his family will end up in serious trouble and financial problems. Sometime later, Jin-young arrives at an old and abandoned factory building, a place so creepy that it even scares Jinho, who is usually brave about things. Suddenly and out of nowhere, a group of workers starts gathering and coming around Jin-young from different directions, praising him and saying nice things about how he did a great job yesterday during the game. But as soon as the section manager shows up, everyone quickly scatters and runs away. The manager then takes Jin-young over to a new machine that he knows nothing about, and the section manager gets angry and upset instead of helping him out. Jin-young starts working on the machine anyway despite not knowing what to do, and quietly tells Jinho that the reason the section manager is acting like this and being mean is because he lost his position as the team's pitcher in the game. Suddenly, Jin-young's hand gets caught and injured badly by the machine while he is working, causing the boss to rush over quickly and ask why he was even using the grinder machine in the first place without proper training or knowledge about it. The boss then starts yelling at Jin-young, accusing him of falling asleep while using it, which makes everyone in the factory believe that the whole accident was Jin-young's fault. Later that, Jin-young wraps a bandage around his right hand and thinks to himself that it does not really matter anymore if he is hurt since he is not a baseball player. Just then, his phone rang and it was his father calling him to ask about the game that happened on Saturday earlier. Jin-young tells him that he won the game, but his father says that he finally found a job after looking for so long and will be starting work very soon at his new place. He asks Jin-young if he still loves baseball deep down in his heart. He goes on to say that he did everything he possibly could to keep their family going and surviving while he was sick and unable to work, but now that things are getting better and improving for them. So, if Jin-young still has feelings and passion for baseball in any way, he hopes and wishes that he will live his life doing what he truly loves and enjoys the most. The next day, Jin-young kicks his boss's door and throws a resignation letter at his face, saying that he will be waiting for his severance pay. 2 months later, Jin-young arrives at the baseball field to take a test, and Jinho asks if he thinks he can pass, but Jin-young says he doesn't think he has a chance. He admits that he isn't confident about passing because he followed Jinho's advice and all he has done for the past 2 months is run and stretch in the mornings, then watch baseball while eating and spend the rest of the time just resting. However, Jinho says there's a reason he told him to do all that, because what really matters is that the baseball manager sees proof of his skill and Jin-young's pitching speed and stamina have already gone up a lot. It turns out that Jin-young is here to try out for the Goyang Stars, an independent baseball team that isn't part of the Korean baseball organization. Even so, they still managed to produce 3 pro players last year, and it's also the team where the rising star Junhyang plays, which makes many people see the Stars as an impressive and well-known team. After that, Jin-young takes the conditioning test, and Jinho thinks he might not pass the physical part. Then the pitching coach steps up and says he's going to run a friendly game today. He asks if anyone wants to join, and Jin-young quickly raises his hand. Soon, Jin-young stands on the pitching mound to face a batter from another team. He throws the first pitch and it's perfect as the batter can't hit it, which makes him mad. On the second pitch, the batter hits the ball but he gets out right away, ending his turn fast. After that, the second batter steps up, and Jin-young suddenly throws 2 balls for no clear reason, making the batter think something isn't right. Then Jin-young throws another pitch, and this time the batter manages to hit it, but he still gets out right away, and Jin-young easily earns 33 points. Even so, Jin-young feels good because his pitches feel smoother and stronger than they did back in high school, and he starts to wonder if it's because he has been holding a baseball all the time just like Jinho told him to. Just then, a strong batter with a 50-point record shows up and quickly notices that Jin-young is a repertoire pitcher, which means he tricks batters by throwing easy-looking pitches and then uses a changeup when the time is right. Jin-young throws the ball, and the batter thinks he can easily hit it, but then he realizes too late that it's a changeup, and he gets out just like the others before him. Meanwhile, a man watching from the side thinks that Jin-young's timing for the changeup is perfect and starts wondering if Jin-young is trying to show that he's a slow pitcher who uses the best weapon a slow pitcher can have. At that moment, the director of the Goyang Stars walks up to the coach and tells him to send Jin-young to the mound for the 3rd inning. We get a flashback when Jinho asks Jin-young if he is still considering things even after giving his letter of resignation. Juno then tells him that he strikes out Junhyang and because of that he has a roulette spin, so he should use it now and see. Afterward, Jin-young spins the roulette and he receives a breaking ball miracle ability which is actually grade gold. However, Jin-young still looks sad, so Jinho asks why he is not happy about it, so Jin-young asks what a pitcher like him has to raise first in terms of his abilities. Hearing that, Jinho starts laughing and tells him that the only weapon for a trash and slow pitcher like him is something important. Back in present, the coach asks Jin-young if he would take part in a 3rd inning Oswell and Jin-young happily accepts. Afterward, the match begins and the batter wonders if Jin-young is giving up easily and throwing an errorang ball without trying hard. But Jin-young throws a curveball instead that the catcher easily catches without any problems at all. The batter gets nervous and thinks to himself that the curve and slider had to be bait and tricks as Jin-young cannot even throw straight properly, but he realizes and figures out that Jin-young's final pitch is always a changeup every single time. Jin-young throws a ball forward and the batter manages to hit it with his bat, but he easily gets out as Jin-ho catches the ball smoothly in his glove. At that exact moment, Jin-young realizes that the only real weapon and advantage for a slow and not-so-great pitcher like him is the changeup pitch that can trick batters completely. After that, the game keeps going and Jin-young amazingly strikes out 9 batters in a row, earning 400 points. Because he successfully finishes 3 perfect innings without any mistakes, he also gets another 300 points as a reward. Later that day, the director and coaches gather for a meeting, still shocked that there's a pitcher whose fastest pitch only reaches 120 kilometers. The coaches argue that if they include someone like him on their team, it might make the whole team look weak and damage their image. Just then, the pitching coach asks if there are any other pitchers who caught their attention besides Jin-young, but everyone stays quiet. The coach then explains that Jin-young had been hiding his real skills during the first and second innings, and his true ability only showed in the third inning. He suggests that they should recruit him and test him in their next game after the end of February. He also adds that Jin-young should be assigned as the starting pitcher against the Daegu Ravens. Meanwhile, Jin-young waits nervously for a reply from the Goyang Stars to know if he's been accepted or not, and then his phone suddenly rings as it turns out that he's officially accepted. The next day, Jin-young sits down to have his breakfast and eats his food like he normally does while watching a sports match on his tablet. Jin-young slowly starts to understand what happened to him and thinks that this is just the beginning of his journey. Jin-young looks into the virtual manager, but the glowing screen does not show anything interesting or useful. Kim Jin-ho floats up to Jin-young and tells him that he still has 1 silver roulette ticket that he can use. Kim points his finger at Jin-young and tells him that things will not be easy, and the silver roulette ticket is there to help him. It turns out that Jin-ho is right again and the bonuses help Jin-young's characteristics get better slowly but surely. Afterward, Jin-young spins the roulette wheel and the dark sky lights up with a very bright light. Kim Jin-ho and Jin-young look at the result together, but they do not see any real benefit from using the ticket. The screen shows words that say one of the servers will become higher in rank, but this effect only lasts for 24 hours. Later, at the stadium, another warm-up session takes place and pitchers practice their throws and batters hit the balls. On the other hand, coach talks with the director and tells him that he has already notified everyone about accepting 3 candidates and prepared a new schedule for the season. He reports to the director that this year there will be 12 fewer matches, and there will also be a 36th exchange match against a team of newcomers. The director listens carefully and thinks about how independent teams have already won 36 times before. Professionals do not have to play against independent teams, but because of the official pros and baseball fans, this is the first time such an exchange match has taken place. Each game is a chance for the Homeland Stars to experience what it feels like to compete with professional players. Director tells the coach to work out a game plan with the Dragons and then leaves quickly for his upcoming meeting with the heads of the Seoul Angels. While management discusses future plans, Jin-young arrives safely at the Homeland Stars training camp and checks into room number 302. He walks around the room like an excited child and shows Kim that he now has a good bed, a spacious room. He looks at the gym and training area with amazement, and he sees the cafeteria with tons of food available. This whole setup costs only 700,000 a month, but Kim is sarcastic about it. He tells Jin-young that he once played for 10 million a month. Kim explains that it is normal for players to pay themselves to get into baseball, but when they become professionals, they get paid instead. Jin-young lives in a small rooftop house and can't even dream of having a better place to live. He gets angry at Kim and charges him with his fists, but Jin-ho quickly calms him down and tells him to listen because he has something important to say. Afterward, Jin-ho explains that the big difference between the major and minor leagues isn't just the level of skill, but also the living and working conditions. He tells Jin-young that when he was young like him, he spent an entire season playing in the minor leagues. Even though his skills were good enough, he was never called up to the major leagues. He had to make his mind stronger and develop a sense of thirst to feel the hunger for victories. Moreover, Jin-ho learned this lesson and remembered it for the rest of his life because only those who feel this hunger in the lower league can become real monsters in the major league. Later, Jin finds on Chansip of the Dragons, the current best pitcher who throws over 100 balls at over 150 kilometers. Afterward, Chansip walks up to Jin-young and says that even if it's the independent league, a kid like him is the best starting pitcher, and then he starts messing around with Jin-young's hairs. The director watches the players closely from his observation deck as his eyes focus on center field. He thinks that Chansip is the best pitcher of the current era of professional baseball, and he is among the players on the Daegu Ravens. Many people know that after the disqualification, Chansip will be sent to play in a friendly match with the Jinyoung's team, and Jinyoung will have to compete against him. Coach is not sure that the guy should play today, and he asks director about this. The director watches the situation closely while the coach shares his opinion about the upcoming match. He worries that Jinyoung will lose all his interest in baseball. Jinyoung also worries that no matter what he shows in the qualifying games, Chansip will still have tricks up his sleeve. A glowing screen appears in front of the guy's face and reminds him of bonuses and points. Jinho and Jinyoung discuss their serious opponent and develop a strategic plan for the match with Chansip. Reporters gather at the friendly match of the Independent League, and this is not surprising because they come to film the match with the second Kim Jinho. After thinking about how Jinyoung and Chansip are no match for each other, Jinho doubts whether Jinyoung should even take part in the match. However, Jinyoung decides to stick to his plan and focus on throwing his pitches. He glances at the glowing screen again, rereads the messages, and resolves that he will simply show everyone what he is truly capable of. The game begins and quickly heats up, moving at a fast pace. The Homeland Stars catcher gets ready for his pitcher's next throw, while the Dragons batter grins confidently, full of determination. In the stands, a group of elderly men cheer loudly for the Daegu Ravens, shouting warnings to be careful and encouraging their batter to give it his all. These aren't just ordinary fans, they're veterans and former professional players who have been on the field themselves and aren't here just for fun. When it comes to non-professional baseball, they are the best. As senior colleagues, they've already experienced the pain of losing games and know how to handle it. Led by the respected director, they take their day off to come here and help the younger players reach their full potential. The director watches not only the game but also keeps a sharp eye on a player who is whistling under his breath. This cheeky player ignores everything happening around him and doesn't even bother paying attention to the game. Instead, he amuses himself by tossing the ball up and catching it over and over. Occasionally, he fails to catch it, and the ball safely drops to the floor. Meanwhile, the game in the stadium goes on as usual. The mischievous player picks up the rolled ball, knocks it on the floor, and continues his little game. Soon, he'll have to start playing seriously, but for now, he keeps whistling his silly songs without a care in the world. Nothing stops him, not even the presence of respected veterans nearby. Director turns to the young man who continues to sit on the bench without moving and twirls the ball in his hand. The respected veteran calls Chansip by name and patiently waits for the guy to respond. Silence follows again as Chansip deliberately ignores director and pretends that no one is around. Unable to bear it, the respected veteran comes close to the guy and calls his name for the third time. Chansip responds by calling the director an old man. Seeing no sign of respect or good manners, the director loses his patience, grabs the young man's hand, and squeezes it tightly, causing the ball to fall to the ground. Furious, he orders the impudent player to warm up on the field and sternly reminds him that he is a coach first, not some old man to be ignored. The young man snaps back with biting words, filled with rudeness. The coach warns Chansip with a cold tone to watch his words and actions. Ignoring the warning, Chansip turns away from the director and angrily fires back with yet another nasty remark. Chansip takes the field and heads toward the pitcher mound as the game takes a different turn. He has no shortage of strength, speed, and ball control. He considers himself the best pitcher of the present time, which is why he is so daring. Chansip throws pitches and the coaches of the Homeland Stars team measure the speed of his baseball out of curiosity. After some thought, the Stars coaches decide it is time for batter Wilson Miller to shine, and they call him out first. The figure of the 100-point batter takes position in the home plate, ready to hit Chansip's pitches, and he begins to take aim with his bat. Jinyoung waits behind the player's bar, preparing for his start as the pitcher, and asks Jinho if the 100-pointers will get their mark. Jinho replies no, explaining that the Dragons easily get the first and second batters out with regular pitches, and Wilson will have a tough time making contact. Then, Chansip steps up, swinging with his leg high and pushing the ball out with his fingers. The ball flies straight without spinning as Wilson swings his bat. Watching this, Jinho trusts in the 100-point monster and anticipates his return to the Homeland Stars team when Wilson hits the second serve. Meanwhile, the Dragons coach talks about the arrogant and daring player that the experts have been discussing so passionately. Coach Allen tries to influence Chansip's behavior, suggesting that he pay closer attention to his opponent, the pitcher from the Homeland Stars team. Despite repeated attempts to reach the player, nothing seems to work, and the coach grows frustrated with the lack of response. Eventually, the veteran concludes that the real challenge for the Dragons isn't just the batters from the stars of the motherland, but Jin Young himself. He has been observing him closely for a long time. Kim, as always, offers advice and equips Jin Young with various tricks and change-ups, encouraging him to stay strong and not give up despite the mounting pressure of the game. Jin Young prepares to throw to the attacking team, and opposite him stands an opponent with a 35-point rating. The Dragon batter has only Jin Young's change-ups on his mind, and he prepares to hit them. Jin Young decides to use his secret weapon and score as many points as possible. Kim suddenly appears and intervenes as always, seeing doubts with his questions. When the guy is already preparing to throw the ball, Jinho reminds Jin Young of their old conversation, or rather the advice and the lesson he learned. Without a drop of doubt, Jin Young nods his head in the affirmative and prepares to put on a show. The guy wraps his fingers around the ball on the seam, twists his wrist hard, and throws it with a slight deflection into the right corner. The Dragon's batter is not ready because from his position he can only hit a change-up. He cannot change his position and react quickly enough. He swings but loses his balance. An expert discusses at the referee's table that this is an interesting pitcher who hit a good pitch called a slider. The referee announces the end of the fourth inning, and the Homeland Stars go on the attack while the Dragons take up defensive positions. Jin Young sits at the player's counter while the virtual manager flashes glowing messages and adds bonus points for his achievements. He feels upset because there are a lot of bonuses in front of him, but he receives them only for his first achievements. The guy does not understand what will happen next, and like a child hungry for a toy, he takes a moment to imagine what he could get after his first victory. From the opposite side of the stadium, Director watches Jin Young and his joyful movements. Director becomes convinced that the guy from the Homeland Stars team is interesting not only for his good change-ups. While the Dragons coach is lost in thought, Chanseep approaches him feeling very annoyed. Chanseep complains that the Dragons did not steal a single base, did not score a single run, and were pitched by such a terrible pitcher. Finally, the impudent man realizes that there are other players besides him and heads to the serving circle to take up defensive positions. Playing so poorly even in a simple match between independent teams is a huge blow to Chanseep's pride. After striking out batter, Chanseep intends to urgently return to professional sports before he completely sinks here. Wilson Miller takes a position in the home zone, and he is not afraid of either Chanseep as an opponent or his threats. Chanseep prepares to serve his signature throw called the knuckleball, making his opponent think that the ball will fly straight. The ball actually flies straight and then abruptly changes its trajectory, but the batter who watches the ball still manages to hit it. The force of the blow sends it out of bounds, and the umpire calls a home run. Chanseep is not happy and looks at the ground in frustration. The home run announced by the umpire completely enrages him. When the batter is able to hit the ball, Chanseep screams at the top of his lungs and calls the batter with curse words. However, Kim Jinho takes a closer look at Chanseep and concludes that he is completely crazy. These eyes are no longer just pitcher's eyes, and they are the eyes of a predator, filled with hatred and an intense thirst for revenge. While Jin Young talks with Kim, the Homeland Stars coach approaches him and asks if he's ready to step in during the fifth inning. Jin Young thanks the coach for the opportunity and eagerly agrees, excited to join the game and face the challenge. Journalists surround the experts and interview them, bombarding them with questions, but the outcome of the game is still unknown. It seems like the experts have only a few final words left as they draw their conclusions from the game that hasn't even ended yet. Batter Wilson, with sharp eyes like a hunter ready to finish off his prey, could easily become the star of the match instead of Chanseep. But maybe there's someone else, one expert thinks while studying the pitch data on his computer screen. That person is pitcher Jin Young, a small, energetic player with a confident stance and surprising pitches that no one sees coming. Later, Jin Young looks through the sports newsfeed on his phone and he happily informs Jinho that he found an article right on the main page. While Jin Young is feeling happy, Jinho is also quietly pleased, but first he checks the bonuses Jin Young earned and whispers about them into Jin Young's ear. Amid his excitement, Jin Young requests the system manager to give him a ticket to the Platinum Roulette for his winnings from yesterday, and he immediately feels a bit embarrassed asking for it. All Jin Young really wants is something meaningful to happen so that he can get a proper chance to step into the world of professional baseball. The batters he defeated are nowhere near the skill level of those he has yet to face. Jin Young wants to make his contribution to the world of baseball, but he started too late, and while his number is only 16, things are difficult. After exchanging the 4,000 points he earned for a bronze ticket, Jin Young hears Jinho's advice and decides to use the roulette. Coming closer to this miracle, Jin Young and Jinho carefully look at the drum cells and realize that nothing useful will fall out there. After thinking for a minute, they decide to rotate it anyway and turn the drum with all their might. When the roulette stops, Jinho is happy as a child while Jin-young feels upset. The guy's stamina increases by 1 level, and the glowing screen displays useless messages one after another. While Jinho continues to mock him, Jin-young says that he has another ticket, only this time for gold roulette. He resolutely approaches the drum which emits a glow even brighter than before. They both look with interest at the golden segments of the roulette. At that moment, Jin-young dreams of a super prize and a feeling of thirst for easy money arises in the guy. He spins the luminous drum as hard as he can. From the outside, it seems that the guy will explode and his nerves will snap. Jinho tries to reason with him because life should not be uncontrollable. The drum keeps beating relentlessly, and the guys continue shouting excitedly, anticipating the bonus they hope to receive. Kneeling down with his eyes closed, Jin-young silently prays for his most cherished wish to come true. Finally, the roulette stops, and Jin-young carefully opens one eye to peek at the frozen drum cell. A blue glowing screen appears, and he reads the message: his fastball has improved. Meanwhile, the coach and the experts gather in the office of the Homeland Stars director. The coach explains to the audience that their team now receives a lot of funding, and all of it is thanks to the loss of the Dragons, or more specifically, Chansey Party. But it is necessary to face the facts and study the situation in more detail and thoroughly. Having won with a score of 1-0, batter brought a point to the Homeland Stars team, and everyone agrees with this fact. Another fact is that all the batters failed to get a single base, and in the end, the victory is brought by pitcher Jin-young, who was not on the team originally. At the end of the meeting, coach announces to the crowd that tomorrow there will be a friendly match with the Seoul Angels. Journalists are planned to be present at the game, and it is unacceptable to allow a loss. The director continues his speech as it is the third hour of negotiations. It is necessary to discuss one more main point, which is the register of players at tomorrow's game. From the side of the relief pitcher zone, the director proposes Jin-young as a shift man. Coach is not happy, but the argument remains the same. By bringing victory, Jin-young becomes an official player of the team. Meanwhile, Jinho sits in the training room explaining to Jin-young how to throw the improved fastball he obtained from the roulette. The balls that Jin-young throws don't feel like a new skill at all, which makes him even angrier. He asks Jinho to explain it more simply, but that's not the case because Jinho never looks for easy ways. Jinho lists the varieties of fastballs, saying they come as 4-seam, 2-seam, and cutter, bending the fingers of his right hand as he explains. Jinho hopes that Jin-young now understands everything about fastballs and how crucial this pitch is for any pitcher. Slowly, understanding begins to dawn on Jin-young as he realizes that pitchers of the past have always modified their pitches, and over time there have been countless changes. Yet one fact has remained constant: pitchers always threw the fastball more often than any other pitch. Jinho continues explaining this while Jin-young listens intently, absorbing every detail with interest. Jin-young wonders if he can only throw a 4-seam fastball. Jinho replies that in the era of fastballs, nothing is more important than the speed and quality of these pitches. He places a hand on Jin-young's shoulder and points toward the glowing screen. Jin-young has excellent fastball skills, but he doesn't fully appreciate it yet. Afterward, Jin-young arrives at Angels Park in Incheon, which is owned by Hyunsung Group, the sponsor of the Seoul Angels, the second greatest team stadium. After their victory in 1992, the Angels have only been falling, but the only reason they were able to invest in something like this was because the niece of the Hyunsung Group, Yoon-seo, ended up becoming the operations manager. Jin-young keeps staring at Yoon-seo, realizing that she looks even younger than he first thought, but then the coach shouts at him to focus before the game starts. Meanwhile, Yoon-seo asks someone who the player wearing number 16 is, and the person tells her that it's Jin-young, the winning pitcher who didn't allow a single point against Chansey. After that, the commentators switch on their microphones and start chatting, cracking jokes, and making fun of almost every player on the field in a lighthearted way. Meanwhile, Jin-young starts thinking about Sunwoo, believing that he's going to grow into a great pitcher someday. Still, he also feels that their own team isn't bad at all, especially since Viljun used to be a really strong player back in his pro league days. Afterward, Jinho tells Jin-young seriously not to take his eyes off the Angels bench today, including the coaches, the players stepping up at bat, and the hitters who are waiting for their turn. He tells Jin-young to ingrain and memorize all their movements into his head so he knows and understands what a real pro team is like in action. Afterward, the match begins with Angels player Yoon-sung doing and hitting a 3-run home run that clears the fence easily. Watching the game unfold right in front of him, Jin-young points out that all the players are constantly communicating and talking with one another. The batter standing at the plate, the one sitting on the bench, and even those returning after their turn are all sharing what they noticed. The other players sitting nearby and the coaches in the dugout are also joining in, discussing and passing information around so that everyone stays connected and aware of what's happening on the field. However, Jinho says that this is the reason why he told him to pay attention, because an experience like this is hard to come across. Jin-young realized that it was okay and fine until the end of the second inning, as Phil-jun let them score once and started to shake a bit nervously, but it was still manageable and under control. However, he thinks and notices that the problem started at the third inning as the looks in the hitter's eyes changed completely after the batting rotation came back around to the top. Jinho then directly asks Jin-young if he's feeling scared of pitching, and Jin-young secretly thinks about it too, knowing that going up against that strong batting lineup won't be easy at all for someone like him. Still, he tells himself firmly that he won't let himself be scared by the secondary players on the opposing team. Shortly after that, the coach calls out to Jin-young and tells him to start warming up in the bullpen right away since he's going to pitch in the 7th inning of the game. Meanwhile, the pitchers who are still practicing start thinking to themselves that they do not want to pitch anymore in this game, though a few of them pretend to keep throwing a couple more balls and act like they just are not feeling well physically. The truth is that they do not want to go up to the mound and face what feels like certain defeat and failure against the strong team. But the catcher named Do-hyun believes strongly that they should still give their best effort and grab any small chance they can get to win. Suddenly, Jin-young walks up to him and greets him politely, and the two of them shake hands with each other. Do-hyun then asks Jin-young if he wants to practice something specific right now, and Jin-young replies back and says that he wants to work on a special kind of fastball pitch. Hearing that, Do-hyun decides to give Jin-young a chance and opportunity because he is a new guy around the team, but he still cannot understand what he means by a special fastball pitch. Afterward and right after that, Jin-young throws a special fastball that goes straight and directly towards the catcher without any curves or movements. Finally, it is the 7th inning of the game and Jin-young comes onto the plate to pitch, and the commentator thinks and believes that everyone might be expecting something from him, but only because Jin-young just came in such a garbage time when the game is already decided. However, Jinho tells Jin-young firmly not to listen to them and their comments and just show them what he got and what he is capable of doing on the mound. Afterward, the batter arrives at the plate, thinking that Jin-young can pitch around 120 kilometers and uses sliders and changeups when needed, so he decides to play it at his own pace and not rush things. Afterward, Jin-young throws a ball forward and it turns out to be a fastball, but as soon as it comes near the batter it just floats upward in the air, so he hits it instantly, which leads him to get an out right away. Seeing that strange pitch happens, the other guy from the audience thinks that it is impossible to throw rising fastballs at 120 kilometers, and even though his pitches are so slow and not very fast, how is it even possible for the ball to spin that fast and create that movement? At the bottom of the 7th inning, Jin-young mixes up his fastballs and changeups, managing to strike out the last two batters. On the other hand, Jinho thinks that Jin-young did an amazing job at getting the batters frustrated, especially since he started with straight pitches and then switched to a changeup at the perfect moment. However, Jin-young feels disappointed because the other team is already leading by 10 points, and in a situation like this, when a pitcher still has to go to the mound but can't change the outcome no matter how hard he tries, it feels like the worst thing that could possibly happen to a pitcher. The next day, the pitching coach, Kim Jung-go, tells another player not to stress himself and make sure he stretches before he pitches. Kim Jung-go trained during an era where pitchers need to throw as much as possible, but due to rough training, he wasn't able to hold his career for long. So, in order to prevent others from falling to the same fate as him, he became a coach and researched the most efficient practice method and figured out what he calls the Kim Jung-go routine. At that moment, Jin-young arrives at his training area and asks curiously what he is going to do today for practice. However, the coach coldly tells him without much care to do what he always does every day, and Jin-young complains about how he thinks that he has been abandoned by everyone. He thinks sadly that the coach is not giving him proper training and attention for the longest time now, but Jinho says that it is because he is getting personal training from him instead of the regular coach. Out of nowhere, Jin-young notices Junhyang and some other guy who tries to give him his business card, suggesting that he should join them on their team. He further tells him that once the season is over and finished, they will increase his pay by 200%, which is a lot more money. Hearing that, Junhyang turns down their offer, and the scout leaves soon after. Then, Junhyang notices Jin-young standing behind the wall. Jin-young quickly tries to explain that he wasn't eavesdropping or anything, saying he just happened to be running nearby on his usual course. But Junhyang asks him what kind of team he wants to join. Jin-young replies that, unlike other players, he doesn't really have the freedom to choose whichever team he wants to join. But if he ever had that choice, he would pick the team that could fulfill all of his requests. He then explains that his ideal team would be the one that lets him play for them for just one season and then allows him to leave afterward to join the major league. At that moment, the coach arrives and tells Jin-young directly that the director is asking for him right now, so he should go back to the office immediately. After the meeting is over, Jin-young could not believe and is shocked that during the Incheon Sharks game coming up, he is starting as the pitcher. Incheon Sharks is a top team in the league, as after claiming the top spot for 6 years straight in a row, they were a superpower team that was considered the next dynasty in professional sports. He also thinks and realizes that the Sharks have an incredible line of batters and hitters that can beat anyone they face on the field. Afterward, Jinho opens his current status window and asks Jin-young if with his current skill level right now, does he think he can win against minor league teams in a game. Jin-young then asks Jinho seriously to train him properly, which fires up Jinho, and he tells Jin-young that he will make sure he walks down a nice path to success. Finally, the day of the Sharks game comes, and the Shark scout yells at his team, telling them to beat Jin-young no matter what happens. The others who see that think it's because he once got turned down by a batter from an independent team, and that's why he's so mad now. On the other hand, Coach Jungo talks to his pitchers and reminds them that they still have a 1-point lead, so they should use the bottom of the first inning to keep it that way. He also tells Jin-young to take it slow for now, but Jin-young asks the coach if he can chew some gum first. After that, Jin-young walks to the mound, and the players from the other team talk about how Jun-young was able to hit a home run even though the ball's path looked really strange. They then talk about their own star player and wonder why someone like him hasn't not gone pro yet, as it might be because of injuries and failing grade during high school. The player's name is Jang Jun, who is the starting batter of the Sharks, and he wonders why no one is paying attention to Jin-young, as all they are talking about is Jun-young. Afterward, Jin-young throws a fastball. It goes straight to the catcher's gloves. Then, the second ball comes as a slider and Jang Jun even missed it as well, and then he misses another ball which gets a strike. However, he starts wondering why he never heard that Jin-young was good at throwing sliders, but then he tries to calm himself down. After that, Jin-young throws a perfect curveball that gets the batter out easily without any problem. Right after the pitch, Jin-young receives a bunch of rewards from his system, and it even says he will get extra points if he manages to strike out 3 batters in a row without letting anyone reach base. Watching that amazing performance, Jinho thinks for a moment and realizes that it was a perfect inning with 3 strikeouts in a row, and the last pitch was a curveball that completely fooled everyone watching. Jinho then tells him not to get too nervous about the next inning but quickly shuts his mouth, saying that he almost gave advice which he should not do. Afterward, Jinho starts laughing out loud and wonders to himself if he should just give a hint at this point to help him out, but then he tells Jin-young that he still has not faced his true crisis yet. Afterward, the referee calls for a switch of sides, but the scouts watching Jin-young notice that he's currently on a streak of 12 consecutive strikeouts, having already racked up 5 strikeouts earlier in the game. One of the scouts thinks that Jin-young is finally getting the attention he deserves, since he hasn't allowed a single hit or thrown 4 balls all the way through the 4th inning. However, the scout also realizes that some kind of article about Jin-young is bound to come out soon, and whether it will praise him or criticize him will completely depend on how he performs in the remaining innings. Later, Jinho asks Jin-young how all the hitters on his team besides Jun-young are so useless, but Jin-young says that it's just Jun-young being special and it's not an easy thing for an independent league player to get a hit on a secondary pro team pitcher. At the same time, he also notices one strange thing among the Blue Sharks batters. Pointing his finger toward the opponents, he sees the batter of the offensive team shaking like a leaf, scared of missing a pitch from a pitcher with slow speed. Right away, Jin-young remembers the Seoul Angels batters, who tried every trick to hit pitches without flinching, not even once. He decides that the weakness of his opponents is to his advantage, but his health level also drops completely, as shown on the glowing screen. Jin-young enters the 5th inning, determined not to change his plan, and keeps throwing slow pitches to his opponents. When he throws his special fastball, the glowing screen shows that his remaining health points are completely used up. The pitch is successful, and there is no limit to the joy of the Homeland Stars pitcher, who finishes the 5th inning perfectly. But Kim ruins everything again with his nasty, suspicious laugh, bringing the guy back to reality. Jin-young is exhausted from the game and has lost all his health. Kim Jinho read about this in the notice from the baseball manager. All he has to do is warn the guy that, from this moment, his hellish path full of fire begins. However, Jin-young seems to have completely forgotten what the ghost had warned him about. Frustrated, he glares at Jinho, silently demanding an explanation. Jin-young feels his strength drain away, yet the trembling in his body refuses to subside. When the coach calls him over, he greets Jin-young with a wide smile, praising him and thanking him for all his hard work. Proudly, the coach asks if he can throw even more pitches, a question that feels to Jin-young like a death sentence. Only now does he truly understand what Jinho had been talking about and the kind of grueling, painful path he had been warning him about. In past games, Jin Young only played as the first pitcher, helping the team get off to a good start. But today, as the starting pitcher, the weight of responsibility is much greater. His role is to set the pace of the game right from the beginning. Jin Young recalls how he pitched a perfect fifth inning before, striking out every batter without allowing any runs or home runs. He also thinks about Chuck Bomson, the director of the Homeland Stars, who, like any true expert, would never replace a pitcher so easily or without good reason. The coach brings Jin Young back to the present by talking about the upcoming inning. Jin Young wants to tell him that his body feels weak, but the coach doesn't believe him and won't allow any complaints about his health. After a moment of thought, Jin Young decides to return to the field and give everything he has to help the team. Jang places high hopes on his pitcher, calling him the star of the mound once again. As the umpire signals for player changes to start the new inning, Jin Young steps into the pitcher's circle. The glowing screen flashes one warning after another, and what awaits Jin Young now is known only to God and Kim, who suddenly vanishes without a trace. Later, a guy in Jin Young's gathering curses the starting pitcher of some team. Earlier, Jinho thinks that Jin Young broke the 12-second rule and he can see that he is completely mentally destroyed. However, he thinks that it's understandable since he got home run on during his first starting game, but it's something no one can avoid as even the most famous pitchers in the world got home run on the mound like this. After that, Jin Young throws another pitch, and the coach thinks it's good that Jin Young isn't nervous or shaking. He didn't expect Jin Young to be the type of player who would break down easily, but now he feels it's about time to substitute for him. The coach then turns to the director and says they should take Jin Young out, but the director tells him to hold on, saying that if Jin Young gives up one more point, then they'll make substitutions. On the other hand, two guys are making fun of Jin Young and laughing at him, saying that he is just a noob and beginner who got home run on easily and he will not even make it to pro baseball either in his life. Afterward, Jin Young throws another ball toward the plate, and the batter manages to hit a good shot with his bat, but it gets a foul ball. Jin Young then loses his mind and thinks to himself what he even does out here on the mound, as the batter's swings are powerful, which means that if he messes up even once then he is done for sure. Jin Young then gets scared as he sees the batter standing there ready to hit, but then he calms himself down quickly, thinking that as a starting pitcher he has to be responsible for this entire game. Jin Young then throws another ball, but the batter manages to hit a long shot, and just as the ball moves to the outside, Junhyang jumps and catches it. Seeing that, everyone runs up to him and calls him a pro and all those caring words. However, Junhyang tells Jin Young that baseball is a team sport that they play with 9 people and that he doesn't have to carry all the weight on his shoulders alone. Hearing that, Jin Young suddenly realizes that he is not a legendary player like Jinho was in his career, so he cannot carry all the responsibility for the entire game by himself without any help. After realizing this important lesson, Jin Young bows respectfully and tells Junhyang that they should work together for the rest of the inning and support each other, and surprisingly, the two of them manage to get 3 outs working as a team, which brings the game to an end. In the end, after all the hard work, Jin Young's team beats the Sharks and wins the match, and the man watching from the stands thinks to himself that Junhyang really lives up to his name and reputation. However, the man also notices carefully that Jin Young started to shake a little during the 6th inning because of exhaustion, but still managed to hold on and finish strong, so he passed the test. Later, the man meets Junhyang and Jin Young and says that he is here to scout for the Angels, introducing himself as Hyunkai. He tells Junhyang that his game was impressive because he managed to defeat the Sharks, and then invites him to join the Angels team. He also says that if Junhyang has any conditions, they will do their best to meet them. After that, Hyunkai turns his attention to Jin Young, who sits there feeling very nervous. However, Jinho tells him to speak up and reminds him that this is his big chance to become a pro player and eventually make it to the major leagues. Hyunkai then says that if they can meet each other's conditions, he can prepare an official contract soon, but Jin Young still can't believe how quickly things are moving and that he might actually change division so fast. Just then, the director walks in and confirms that everything they're saying is true, explaining that it's clearly written in the Goyang Stars contract that players are allowed to freely transfer to the Korean Pro League Association whenever they want. After that, everyone sits down together, and Hyunkai asks Junhyang to tell him his conditions first. Junhyang says he wants a promise that he will be a starting player, and after the official registration on May 1st, he wants his name to be on the first division list. When Jin Young hears this, he completely loses it, and to everyone's surprise, the scout agrees to everything Junhyang asks for. Afterward, Jin Young also tries to share his own requests, but Hyunkai tells him that they can't agree to any conditions and only decide whether they can accept a player or not. Jin Young thinks to himself that he should just be grateful for even getting a chance to join the Pro League, so he shouldn't waste time arguing about conditions since he might never get this chance again. Then, Jinho quickly whispers to him to say, "Kick me out of the team," and without thinking, Jin-young blurts it out loud, which instantly gets him in trouble. Later, Hyunkai calls Yunseo and tells her that Jin-young said if he plays a big part in helping the Angels win, he wants to be kicked out of the team. On the other hand, Jin-young is freaking out, blaming himself for losing such a great chance to enter the pro leagues all because of Jinho. After that, he decides to spin the roulette and it turns out he has 1 gold ticket, 1 bronze ticket and enough points for 4 more bronze spins. Jin-young spins the roulette 5 times, but at first, all he gets are health boosts. Then, he finally wins a pitching skill elixir. Afterward, he gains a special magical ability called First Inning, which is a platinum grade skill, but just then someone suddenly knocks on his door. Sometime later, Jin-young goes up to the rooftop with Junhyang, who tells him that he's not going to the major league alone. A few hours earlier, Junhyang had asked Scout Hyunkai if he could add more conditions to his contract. However, the scout, thinking he was going to say something about being kicked out after 1 year too, immediately says that it won't be possible. He then explains that taking in Jin-young is already a big gamble for their team as it could turn out great and bring success, but there's also a high chance that things could go completely wrong. He explains that this is why Jin-young was able to make that condition and request, as it lowers the risk in half as well and protects the team, but for him and his situation it is different and more complicated. He further says that he scouted 2 players for the team, but his expectations are totally different for each of them, and his team, the Angels, is not a temporary place to go into the major league later on in their careers. Back in present, Junhyang tells Jin-young that he will eventually find a way to go into the major league, so until they meet in the major league, they should work hard together. Afterward, both of them shake hands as Jin-young promises that until then he will strike himself out as well in their next match. Just then, the director arrives at the rooftop as well to interrupt their friendly quarrel between the 2 players. The coach then says that now finally the Angels' professional team is recruiting them both and it is sad for him that good players are leaving the team. However, he thinks that even if he wanted a shining star for himself on the team, he cannot drag it down to the ground and hold them back. The coach then kindly says that he will pray for both of them to go far in life and succeed in their careers, which makes Jin-young and Junhyang feel emotional about leaving their current team behind. Sometime later, at the Angels' 2nd Division dorms, the players are chatting about how one of the 1st Division pitcher spots is still open and that someone from the 2nd Division might get called up soon. Just then, Yunseo shows up and asks them which room belongs to Jin-young, leaving everyone completely shocked. On the other hand, Jin-young is busy talking to Jinho about how the other players are still being so noisy even after finishing their match. Suddenly, there's a knock on his door, and when he opens it, Yunseo walks in, saying that she's here with the coach from the 1st Division and that she's the operations manager for the Angels. Afterward, Yunseo explains to him that because player Yunsup got injured, they had to urgently call up someone from the 2nd Division minor league. She also mentions that the players nominated by the coach today will officially become part of the team after May. The coach then says he's heard the rumors about Jin-young's amazing performance in the 2nd Division minor league. He adds that, based on Jin-young's record, a 1st Division call-up seems like the obvious choice, but he's still unsure if just a few great games in the 2nd Division are enough to prove himself. Hearing that, Yunseo agrees in her mind since it's true that Jin-young has only been with the Angels for a few months, but what surprises her is how much he has changed during that short time. After that, the coach says that every player here works like crazy to earn this kind of opportunity, and if someone who only throws a maximum of 130 kilometers gets called up to the 1st Division, the other players would be furious. He adds that even the fans of the 1st Division players wouldn't believe in him, so the coach looks at Jin-young and asks if he'll be able to handle that kind of pressure. However, Jin-young says that there will be times he won't be able to handle it, but this isn't a fair reason for him to run away from the mound. Hearing that, the coach wonders if he has overcome his weak mentality, but what concerns him more is that his pitching speed continues to constantly improve. Afterward, the coach and Yunseo decide to finish his interview and go to Junhyang, but Jin-young tries to stop them. Suddenly, Junhyang gets out of the shower shirtless, yelling at Jin-young why he didn't buy some more shampoo. The next day, the commentator gets ready on the field to announce a match between the Angels and the Devils. The Devils is a strong team that ends up being a potential winner every year, and the Angels and Devils are rivals like water and oil, and their match is one of the biggest games of Korean pro baseball. Meanwhile, at a locker room a guy is yelling at someone on phone in English, which turns out that his baddie just cheated on him with someone else. Seeing that, Jinho tells Jin-young that if he goes on the mound in that state, he will get destroyed. However, Jin-young couldn't believe how money could destroy the ace of the Angels. After that, the game starts with the starting pitcher, Benjamin, who recently got cheated on, and things go badly right away when he gives up a home run to the second batter in the first rotation. Then, Benjamin throws another pitch, but this time too, the batter hits another home run. Watching this, Jinho mentions that on Children's Day, there's a rivalry game between the 3rd and 4th place teams in the Major League, and in that game, the starting pitcher also got completely destroyed. So, he asks what Jin-young plans to do now. Hearing that, Jin-young realizes he should start warming up already because there's a good chance he'll be called to pitch very soon. Afterward, the Devils team celebrates that they will easily hit over 10 home runs today while the Angels are still at 0. On the other hand, Jin-young practices his pitches and thinks that his pitches are way sharper today. However, Jinho says that he is actually embarrassing him as what he is going to do with only pitching at 130 kilometers. On the other hand, the coach receives a call from director who asks him who the current player with the most energy in the bullpen is, so he tells him that it is none other than Jin-young. Afterward, Jin-young steps onto the mound, surprising everyone who can't understand why a newbie like him has been called up, especially since he's so short. Despite their doubts, the Angels catcher, Hakan, warmly congratulates him on making his debut in the First Division League. He then tells Jin-young that even if he throws an explosive pitch, he'll make sure to catch it for him, so he should pitch with full confidence. Hearing that, both Jinho and Jin-young wonder why Hakan is so kind to him all of a sudden for no clear reason. Afterward, Jinho asks Jin-young what with confidence. Jinho and Jin-young wonder why he is being so nice to him for no reason. Afterward, Jinho asks Jin-young what his job is today, so Ji-young replies that he wants to not only strike the batter out but to kill him. On the other hand, the batter from the opposite team, Jabeom, is going as a batter. However, Jin-young then throws a ground ball right toward the batter, who hits it straight to the shortstop with ease. Seeing this, the commentator gets all excited, shouting about how amazing Jin-young is for throwing a changeup as his very first pitch in the First Division game. After that, another batter steps up to the plate and thinks to himself that Jabeom's recent success has made him overconfident since he didn't even bother to study the pitcher. However, he's different as he believes he's the type who studies and analyzes everything 2 or 3 times more than others, and based on his research, Jin-young only throws pitches that reach around 130 kilometers. On the other hand, Jinho asks Jin-young what he's planning to do next, and Jin-young replies that he's going to throw a rising fastball followed by a perspective change and then a revolver pitch. Jin-young throws the ball just like a revolver firing a bullet, and the batter ends up getting out easily. After that, Jin-young thinks that everything is going perfectly according to plan since there's plenty of information available on First Division players, which gives him an advantage because he studied beforehand. However, his real problem now is batter number 9, Hyunbin, who is known as the king of triple base, stealing a fast and dangerous hitter. Afterward, the match continues and Jin-young throws a ball that Hyunbin manages to hit, and then he quickly runs towards the bases to score some points. Hyunbin safes himself and wonders if Jin-young's agility is better than he would expect as he is almost forced out, but he thinks that it's a waste for someone as skilled as him to debut in a lost game like this. Afterward, Hyunbin's team members tell him to take it easy on the bases, which exactly means that he should stretch the lead as fast as he can and run as soon as he sees an opening. Following that, Jin-young throws a ball toward the plate and it gets called a strike by the umpire, which annoys Hyunbin a lot as Jin-young will not even glance at him on the base at all. Hyunbin then plans that this time, if he still does not look this way toward him, then he is going to steal a base and advance forward. Just then, Jin-young gets ready to throw a ball to the plate, and at that moment in time, Hyunbin leaves his base to steal another one, but Jin-young throws the ball at his base instead and he quickly gets out before reaching safely. Seeing that play happen, Jinho asks Jin-young curiously how he knew and figures out that the runner was going to try to steal a base at that moment, so Jin-young says and explains that he came to the conclusion after seeing the expression on Jinho's face and reading his body language. Following that play, Jin-young walks back to the bench as Jinho wonders why the pitcher who ended the inning with a pickoff play does not get so much as a high five from his teammates. Jin-young says that if he does better next time in the game and performs well, they will treat him well and give him more respect and recognition. However, Jin-young thinks to himself that if a scapegoat pitcher for a losing game like him wants to play again, then his team will have to once again go through hell and lose badly before he gets to pitch. However, now all he needs to do is wait patiently for another hell to come and another bad situation to happen. Later that night, Jin-young tells Jinho that his team's mood was at rock bottom, but Jinho says that their rival team pulled ahead by a whopping 13 points, which is a huge difference. Jin-young thinks to himself that Paris pitched even better than him during the game, and he is not even the first division starting pitcher on the team. Moreover, there are even better pitchers out there who are more skilled than both of them. Afterward, Jin-young tries to spin the roulette on his system to get new skills, but Jun-young enters his room suddenly and finds a kissing scene of a Korean drama on a tablet beside Jin-young. It turns out that Jinho was watching by himself, so Jun-young quickly leaves the room feeling embarrassed. A little while later, Jin-young starts wondering about which one of his abilities he should upgrade to A rank, but this makes Jinho really angry, so he refuses to give Jin-young any advice. Even though Jinho is upset, he eventually decides to give some recommendations on his own and takes a look at Jin-young's status window to see what options are available. While looking at the stat window, Jinho says that Jin-young must have gained quite a lot of skills from playing with the Angels secondary team. However, Jin-young quickly explains that he actually got the two-seam fastball ability because of the pitching enhancement elixir he used earlier. Regardless of how he got his skills, Jinho tells him that they really need to upgrade one of his pitching types to a rank because it should be proven by this point that Jin-young is actually a very skilled pitcher who deserves that higher ranking. The next day, the Angels match continues with the Devils and now Hyungju from the Devils arrives and everyone thinks that Devils might take the win again after yesterday. However, the commentator says that the Angels' batting lineup is terrible. After that, the match keeps going and Jin-young walks onto the field and he gets another batter from the Devils team out of the game. Jinho comes over to Jin-young and tells him that what he does from this point really matters because he needs to show everyone in this game that he isn't just throwing any random ball. However, Jin-young thinks about how he hasn't given up any points yet, but he still has to prove himself and strike out the remaining players with his new split-finger fastball pitch. Right at that moment, the first batter from the Devils team steps up to the plate and he makes contact with the ball several times in a row, which lets his team get some extra points on the board. After some time passes, it becomes the Angels team's turn to bat and their first player who steps up to the plate is Hong Woo-young, who everyone knows as the legendary home run hitter with an amazing reputation. Right after he gets into position, the pitcher from the other team throws a ball directly towards him with full force, and then Woo-young makes contact and hits the ball on a long hitting course that sends it flying far, and he runs through first base and third base without any trouble at all. While watching this happen, Jinho thinks to himself that this is a perfect batting lineup for the current situation they are in and having a batter change when there are already runners on first and third base is definitely not a good thing for the other team. At the same time, Dooyob from the Devils team walks over to the pitcher's position on the mound and throws his special pitch with everything he has, but unfortunately the ball ends up hitting the batter right on the cheek instead. The manager of the Devils team quickly makes the decision to change the pitcher to someone else, and then the inning finally comes to an end. Afterward, Jun-young from the Angels team gets ready to go up for batting next. Jun-young ends up missing a ball, so Jinho starts thinking that he is still weak just like all the other players, but Jin-young tells him that he is actually different from all the others. Right at that moment, Jun-young hits a really long home run that surprises him except for Jinho, who is actually jealous. Jin-young then takes a look around the field and realizes that the pitching staff is preparing the ultimate composition in the bullpen area with Sung Jae-yoon, who is known as the Angels' reliable finishing pitcher. Seeing that, Jin-young starts thinking that he is probably going to get subbed out of the game soon. After some time, the match finally gets over with the Angels team winning, and Jin-young gets really excited because this is his very first win in the professional league. Later on, Jin-young shows Jinho an article that he is featured in, so he starts wondering to himself if he is going to become a star player of the Angels team now. However, Jinho tells him to take a good look at the comments section in which people are throwing trash and negative things at him. Jin-young then starts thinking to himself that he is still not satisfied or happy with this victory at all, so he makes the decision to spin the roulette one more time again. The roulette then ends up giving Jin-young a special ability that is called Control Master, which happens to be of diamond rank and is very rare. Jinho tells him that every single time he tries to put a curse on him, things always work out perfectly in his favor and he hits the jackpot. However, since everything is going in the completely opposite direction from what he wants, he decides that he is going to cheer for him instead of cursing him anymore. After that, Jin-young makes up his mind to take one final spin, and when he does, it turns out that he ends up getting something that is completely unique and special. When the next day comes around, it is time for the third game that is scheduled to take place between the Angels and the Devils, and in a surprising turn of events, the Angels manage to win in the final game of the special event that is being held for Children's Day. All of the people involved believe strongly that this victory is entirely because of Jun-young, who has become the new rising star player of the Angels team. Later on, the coach of the Angels team announces that they are going to start the player evaluation process in preparation for the upcoming game against the Sharks. The coaches start talking about Cha Eun-ho, the team's third starting pitcher, but one of them mentions that he still hasn't fully adjusted to the team yet, even though there aren't any major issues with him. Cha Eun-ho is a left-handed pitcher who led the Daegu Rangers to the Korean Championships for 4 straight years. On top of that, he's been performing well as the third pitcher for the Angels, but some still think he isn't worth 100 million won. After that, the main coach says he wants to move Junhyang up in the batting order to the 4th spot and asks the others what they think. Hearing that, the head coach agrees that it's a good idea, but when he then asks for their opinions about Jin Young, the entire room suddenly falls silent. However, the head coach says that Jin Young hasn't really shown enough to be judged properly, but he also thinks there's no point in keeping him in the first division since he believes Jin Young is a player who can't improve any further. But then, another coach speaks up and says it would be better to keep Jin Young in the first division for now because they still need to observe his skills more closely, and he seems like the kind of pitcher who wouldn't run away from tough situations. Hearing that, the head coach gets angry, but before things escalate, the main coach steps in and makes the final decision about what to do with Jin Young. The next day, the game between the Angels and the Sharks begins. There, the interviewer introduces Junhyang as the most popular player recently and asks him how he feels about being placed in the 4th batting position. Hearing that, Junhyang replies coldly that he's just doing his best, and he keeps giving the same short answers to every question, which ends up making the interviewer annoyed. On the other hand, the Angels' veteran reporter watches from the side and thinks that Junhyang is just a fool who only knows how to play baseball and nothing else. He strongly believes that players who give perfect, well-spoken interviews like Jin Young are the ones with real potential. So, he quickly calls Jin Young over, who is out on the field practicing his pitching skills. Afterward, the interviewer asks him why he is working so incredibly hard, so Jin Young explains that it is because even if he does not get chosen to be a starter for the game, he still needs to be completely prepared to step onto the mound at any time. Once the interview is finished, Jin Young goes back to continuing his training and the interviewer thinks that Jin Young is definitely going to accomplish something really big in the future ahead of him. Sometime later, the match finally begins and Jin Young's teammates start wondering why he seems so angry today. However, Jin Young truly believes deep down that today is going to be the day when he gets chosen to be a starter for the team. However, Jinho tells him to stop wasting his time there since he's not going to be playing in this game anyway and says they should just go sit in the audience because he wants to check out the cheerleading girls. Hearing that, Jin Young gets mad at him for acting carelessly and says that even though Jinho is a legendary pitcher, he clearly doesn't understand mind control at all. Then, Jinho asks who the pitcher from the Sharks is, and Jin Young tells him that it's Alex Brady, a player whose ERA is in the ones and whose agility is even better than his pitching speed. On the other hand, Jin Young's team pitcher named Do Seop is feeling really nervous because he got given the starting position after Yoon Seop left. Jin Young looks at the situation and believes that Do Seop's stats are not really amazing or impressive at all, with an earned run average of around 6, and he has not reached his full potential or shown what he is truly capable of yet. Right after that, Do Seop starts pitching on the mound, and he seems to be way too easily giving the Sharks team clean hits because he is simply just too nervous. After struggling for a while, Do Seop eventually collapses right there on the ground. Seeing that, the coaches start wondering and asking each other who is the most warmed-up pitcher available right now to take Do Seop's place on the mound immediately. On the other hand, Jinho tells Jin Young not to worry about him at all, saying that Jin Young needs to focus on winning his own games if he wants to survive and stay important in the professional league where they play. Right after that, Jin Young walks up to the pitching mound to begin his turn. Meanwhile, the Sharks batter, Sung-taek, is fuming with anger because his rhythm and momentum as the starting batter have been completely ruined and thrown off. Even though he is frustrated, Sung-taek still feels pretty confident because Jin Young only seems to have pitches that reach around 130 km/h in speed, which means that he should be able to easily hit some really good shots. However, when Jin Young finally throws his first ball towards home plate, it ends up being called a strike by the umpire, which completely surprises Sung-taek. After that first pitch, Jin Young throws another ball towards the plate, which also gets called out as a strike against the batter. Then when it comes to the third ball that Jin Young throws, Sung-taek ends up getting struck out completely and has to walk away from the plate. Seeing that, everyone is amazed by Jin Young's splitter, calling it unbelievable, but soon they start making excuses, saying that his splitter is only at a normal league level. On the other hand, the interviewer from before watches closely and starts wondering how Jin Young has improved so much in such a short time since being called up to the first division. He thinks to himself that this kind of growth doesn't seem possible unless Jin Young got help from some kind of ghost. Another batter steps up to the plate and thinks to himself that with a splitter like Jin Young's, it would be tough to hit even if he knew exactly when it was coming. He decides to focus on filtering out the fastballs that enter the strike zone first, guessing that there's a high chance Jin Young will throw another splitter. Then, Jin Yong throws 2 strikes in a row, which makes the batter start to feel nervous as he wonders what kind of pitcher goes straight for the kill using nothing but pure control. Furthermore, he thinks that Jin Yong can't aim for the corners every time, so if he picks the right pitch to hit, he thinks he could hit a home run as it's not a ball and 2 strikes anyway. Just then, Jin Yong throws the ball, tries to hit it, but he gets strike out. Afterward, Jin Yong walks back to the bench where everyone seems to appreciate him even more now except for Jinho, who is furious at him like usual. He thinks that Jin Yong doesn't deserve a compliment for striking out 2 batters, and he just thinks high and mighty for having just the tiniest bit of control in his pitches. Afterward, Jinho tells him that the little bit of control he has right now is all thanks to his overpowered skill called Control Master. However, Jin Yong asks Jinho if he'll really be able to pitch well today, and Jinho replies that he warmed up just like a starting pitcher would and has already perfectly analyzed the opposing batters. Because of what happened earlier, his mood on their field feels really tense after that unlucky incident that occurred. However, the batters from the Sharks team are acting completely calm, keeping their behavior like they are true gentlemen who respect the game. Right after that, the match continues and Alex manages to get 3 outs in a row, which becomes his 8th strikeout of the day. Everyone watching starts thinking that Alex is playing absolutely insane and incredibly well today. At the same time, Alex walks back to the bench where his teammates are sitting and thinks to himself that they need to stop being so polite now. They were only acting respectful and considerate because of the earlier incident, but the truth is, they can't afford to feel satisfied just because they won the first game of a 3-match series that's still far from over. Meanwhile, Jinho tells Jin Yong that since batters flip their bats after a good hit, pitchers should be allowed to have their own celebrations too. But Jin Yong asks if major league pitchers also do things like that. Jinho laughs and says that in the major leagues, there are plenty of crazy players, but when they celebrate, their 100-mile-per-hour pitches usually end up flying straight toward the batter instead of the catcher's mitt. Hearing that, Jin Yong smirks and decides to show everyone who the real psychopath standing on top of the mound is. The game goes on, and Jin Yong throws his usual strike, which makes the batter realize that the ball's movement doesn't look like it's only 130 kilometers. Then, Jin Yong throws another strike, and this time the batter gets annoyed and mutters a curse in Japanese. Thinking that the next pitch will definitely be a splitter, the batter prepares to hit it, but instead, Jin Yong throws a fastball and he ends up striking out. After that, Jin Yong takes off his helmet and shouts loudly, full of energy and excitement, completely fired up from the play. Seeing that, everyone wonders what he is saying and some assume that he said woo, which is some sort of ceremony. On the other hand, the players from the Sharks team are really furious at Jin Yong, thinking that he did what he did just to mock them. However, one of the players thinks to himself that they are going to use every single possible method and strategy they can to win this match no matter what. At the same time, the coach of the Angels team thinks that it is really hard to beat and overcome a 5-point lead against a strong pitcher like Alex, but if they end up losing here in this game, the mood will turn really sour. Because of this situation, the coach thinks that he will just let Jin Yong pop off and show his skills however much he wants to without hold back. Right after thinking this, Jin Yong manages to strike out the first batter from the Sharks team, which gets Jin Yong a total of 101 points and also earns him a brand new bonus reward. Jin Yong then stares at Choi Young-woo, who got the highest free agent contract after sailing into professional baseball and recorded an impressive 41 home runs during last season, and he is called a living legend of professional baseball by everyone. However, for baseball fans, Tuesday nights after work are the best because they survived harsh Monday and can watch some baseball. Moreover, people start to notice that there is a newbie that is a psycho because he struck out 5 consecutive batters against the Sharks. Back to the match, Alex strikes out another batter from the Angels, and after each strikeout, Alex just yells as if he celebrates some kind of ceremony. While watching, the senior players of the Angels team get really frustrated, and one of them even thinks that if he were 5 years younger than he is right now, he would dropkick Alex. Right after that, the seniors begin cheering really loudly for Jin Yong, calling him by the special nickname Woo Man. Finally, the second half of the 7th inning begins and Jin Yong prepares himself both mentally and physically. He thinks that the leadoff batter who is coming up to bat this time is number 2 on the roster, Sungwon, is known as the table setter for the Sharks team because of his powerful hits. Furthermore, Jin Yong thinks to himself that his ball control is really good right now, and he intentionally makes the pitcher throw more and more pitches to wear down their stamina. However, the weird and unusual part of this situation is that Sungwon seems kind of angry for some reason. However, Jin Yong decides to activate his magical first inning ability that gives him special powers, and then Jin Yong keeps throwing the ball over and over again towards home plate, but Sungwon manages to hit every single ball out of the strike zone. Seeing this happen, Jin-young decides to use the special ability called Revolver, which exceeds and goes way beyond Jin-young's normal pitch speed that he usually throws at. Someone gets struck out instantly without being able to react to the pitch at all, and then Jin-young yells the woo word to celebrate just like Alex. Right after that moment, Jin-young thinks to himself that he has now gotten 6 batters in a row out consecutively, and the overall record for consecutive strikeouts is 10 batters, but within the Angels team specifically, the record is only 7 batters in a row. All of a sudden, Jin-young hears the crowd of fans cheering loudly for Youngwoo as he arrives at the mound to bat. Meanwhile, Jinho explains to Jin-young that the owner of the Sharks' home stadium is actually Youngwoo himself, so everyone in the crowd is expecting and waiting for a huge home run from him right now. However, Jin-young thinks to himself that his current level of corner work and precision will be completely useless here because that guy Youngwoo is a monster player, someone who will put any pitch that comes his way over the fence no matter what happens. Because of this, Jin-young then decides to use his rising fastball ability, his perspective change ability and his revolving ability all at the same time together to deal with him and get him out. Afterward, Jin-young throws his pitch, and Youngwoo manages to hit it, but Woo-hyung runs straight toward the ball and, to everyone's surprise, catches it cleanly. This play causes both runners to get out, and Youngwoo can't believe that Jin-young actually pitched so aggressively. As the game continues, Jin-young strikes out another batter with ease. Seeing this, the interviewer thinks to himself that there's no need to test Jin-young any further since the team needs a new starter after Do-seop's injury, and the next 5th starting position will definitely belong to Jin-young. All of a sudden, the interviewer's assistant tells him that it looks like Jin-young is going to pitch even more innings than expected, and this news really surprises them and catches them off guard. The interviewer thinks to himself that Jin-young has already finished his duty and completed what was expected of him, but now he is going up to pitch in the 8th inning as well, which is unexpected. On the other hand, Jinho walks over and asks Jin-young why he is being so stubborn in wanting to throw more pitches when he already finished his inning perfectly without any problems at all. However, after thinking about the situation more carefully, Jinho says that the Sharks team has a 5-point lead with their ace pitcher still playing strong. In that kind of situation, it is very likely that they will go for a strong defense strategy instead of a strong offense strategy to keep and protect their lead throughout the rest of the game. Moreover, he thinks that the remaining batting order is the lower hitters with a 2 average, then it is possible for a double-digit consecutive strikeout. Hearing that, Jinho starts getting chills all over his body, but Jin-young tells him that he is going to get that double-digit strikes out no matter what. Right after that, Jin-young managed to strike out a batter, and because he achieved double-digit strikeouts in a single game for the first time. Furthermore, he will be given special bonus points by the system as a reward for his performance. Sometime later, the coach walks over to Jin-young and tells him that he did a great job out there on the mound and asks if he is thinking of going up to pitch in the 9th inning as well. However, Jin-young is already out of stamina, so it is enough for him and he cannot continue anymore. The coach tells Jin-young that next time he plays in a game, he will not be playing from the 4th inning like he did today, but instead he will play from the very first inning as a starting pitcher. After that, Jin-young quietly goes to the washroom and decides to spin the roulette in secret, but Jinho can't help wondering if it's really that important for him to do it there. Still, Jin-young goes ahead and spins it anyway, and surprisingly, he ends up getting an ability that can upgrade one of his chosen skills to a rank. Meanwhile, the first game of the 3-match series between the Sharks and the Angels finishes with the Angels batters failing to score even a single point. On the other hand, Alex Brady puts on an almost perfect pitching performance that grabs everyone's attention. Later that night, Jin-young sits quietly in his room, looking down, which makes Jinho ask if he's feeling nervous about his next game. But Jin-young explains that he's not nervous as he's just stressed out because he has too many skills and can't figure out which one to improve first. Right then, Jinho gets an idea and tells Jin-young that he should level up perspective change, because if his rank gets higher, he can use it more than once. Jin-young then wonders if he can use it on Steel Arm, and Jinho quickly agrees, saying it's perfect to start with. After that, Jin-young asks about rising fastball, and just like before, Jinho nods again, acting like he knows what he's talking about even though he's clearly faking it. In the end, Jin-young decides to use it on Control Master, which completely surprises Jinho and leaves him shocked. Right after spinning the roulette, Jinho wonders and realizes that Jin-young's pitching speed is now 130 km per hour because of the silver roulette he just used, and a notification pop-up appears on the screen saying that pitching speed will not go up or increase from the bronze roulette anymore from this point forward. However, Jinho quickly tells Jin-young not to get too excited or overconfident about this improvement because if he only pitches while trusting in his control abilities alone, he will be destroyed and beaten badly by better batters. Jinho explains in detail that having good control only means that a pitcher can execute the plan well and follow through with what they decide to do, so the better control a pitcher has, the harder they need to use their heads to think of a smart and effective plan. Furthermore, to make his point even clearer, Jinho gives an example of the famous pitcher Greg Maddux, saying that he was a weird man who acted strangely outside the mound, but he was like a professor and a master when he was on the mound pitching. Finally, Jin-young realizes that having good control isn't everything, and now it's time for him to begin his rule on the mound as a true starting pitcher. Just then, his phone suddenly rings, and when he checks, it's a call from Yunseo, who says she's feeling lonely and just wanted to talk to him. It turns out that Yunseo is actually drunk, and she asks if the Angels can really win playing the way he does. She sounds worried because she worked so hard for the team to win, and then she suddenly starts crying. After that, she tells him not to laugh when the team loses again, saying that if she ever sees that happen, she'll make sure to kick him out for real. Just then, Junhyang enters the room looking like a mess from all this hard training that he was going through. Jin-young quickly asks Junhyang why he is overdoing all this intense training and pushing himself so hard, but Junhyang gets really angry and frustrated at the question instead of answering calmly. Right after getting upset, Junhyang quickly grabs his towel and tells Jin-young directly that they lost the game today. But Jin-young wonders to himself why Junhyang is getting so mad and upset over just one single game early in the season when there are many more games to play. However, Jinho steps in and explains that, based on his own personal views and beliefs, Junhyang actually has the right mindset and attitude. He says that even though Jin-young did pretty well in the game and even got a nice reward for his individual performance, the team still ended up losing the match completely, getting shut out without scoring a single point. Jinho then goes on to explain more clearly that the real problem is when a player doesn't feel upset about losing, because that kind of reaction is actually strange. He says that while personal achievements are important for a player's career, Jin-young is still part of the Angels right now, and he should care about how the team performs, not just how well he does alone. The next day, it's the second game against the Sharks. The Angels give it their all and fight hard until the very end, but the final result ends up being 1 win and 2 losses, which means they lose the series. Even so, because of their strong desire to win, the Angels' mood isn't too bad over the next couple of days. But soon, they have to face their next challenge: 3 straight games against the Busan Titans at the Titans' home stadium. The Titans are a tough team, and the Angels know they'll need more than just momentum if they want to stand a chance against them. Afterward, Titans send their 4th batter, who demolishes the Angels with his full house home run. Soon, the Titans batters completely destroy the Angels pitchers, and the fans who spent tons of money to watch this sight were devastated. Meanwhile, the Angels scout decides to go over their plan again after realizing there was a mistake in the scouting report. On the other hand, the Angels coach feels that many of the analysis reports they've been getting aren't very accurate either. He also believes that things won't be easy this time, especially since Jin-young will be starting as the pitcher in the last game of the 3-match series. The coach thinks that Sunday's game will be the ultimate test for Jin-young to prove himself. At the same time, Jinho keeps teasing and trying to annoy Jin-young by saying that the Titans are going to win the match easily. Jinho then tells him to stop whining because he has to go to the mound not looking like a depressed person. Finally, the last day of the Titans vs Angels series arrives, and Jin-young tells the catcher that he is going to pitch mainly change-ups and 2 seams, but the catcher replies that it won't be that easy. Just then, the member of the Anilast team arrives and gives a report to Jin-young. The next day, it is now the 3rd game against the Titans team, and everyone on the Angels team is feeling down and discouraged because the Titans got 20 consecutive points scored against them in previous games. On the other hand, Junhyang walks over to Jin-young and tells him not to be nervous or anxious about the upcoming game because he got this opportunity to pitch with his own skill and talent, so he should be confident and believe in himself. However, Jin-young looks a little creeped out and confused by Junhyang's sudden words of encouragement, not really sure how to react. Seeing his reaction, Junhyang quickly explains more clearly, saying that he's only saying this because Jin-young looked nervous during the last game when the score gap got really big. He tells him that he just wants him to pitch well this time to help the team recover and make up for the loss they had in the previous match. Afterward, Jin-young changes the topic, saying the weather looks like it's going to rain soon, which confuses Junhyang because it's sunny. Meanwhile, the Angels team scout meets up with the interviewer at their usual spot, saying that he already passed all the required documents and paperwork, so the interviewer should start writing the articles about the players as soon as possible. However, the interviewer looks confused and surprised and asks the scout if he has been drinking alcohol in broad daylight because his request seems unusual and out of nowhere. Because of this awkward question, the scout quickly changes the topic of conversation and says that he also edited and updated the scout report of the Titans team this morning to make sure everything is accurate. The interviewer then asks the scout if there are not any players on their team that will use the scout report properly and take it seriously, but the scout pulls out his phone and shows him a picture of Jin Young on the screen, saying that this guy runs and trains like he is already in the big leagues playing at the highest level. It turns out that Jin Young just strikes out a whole bunch of batters from the other team one after another without letting them score even a single point on the board. Meanwhile, Tae-young, who is the Titans' fourth batter in their lineup, realizes that Jin Young's accuracy is really good and hard to hit against, but he tells his teammate Hyung-sip to take care of Jin Young and deal with him when the fourth inning comes around. Right after their talk ends, the fourth inning begins, and Jin Young throws 2 perfect strikes against the batters, showing that his control over the ball has improved a lot compared to his earlier games. After those solid pitches, Hyung-sip comes up next to bat and confidently steps up to the plate. Jin Young throws the ball toward him, and Hyung-sip hits it, but it goes straight to the shortstop, who quickly throws it to first base, getting him out. Suddenly, Hyung-sip becomes furious after being out and starts walking angrily toward Jin Young on the mound, looking like he's about to pick a fight or even attack him. It turns out that Hyung-sip has always had a bad temper and was involved in several school violence incidents back in high school. On top of that, even after turning pro, he kept causing trouble by yelling at his seniors and even getting into a fight with a fan, which led to him earning a bad reputation and a nickname for his behavior. Because of everything he had done in the past, people already had a feeling about what Hyung-sip would do even before he ran onto the mound at the start of the fourth inning. That's why no one was really shocked or even tried to stop him when he suddenly charged straight toward Jin Young. Furthermore, Jin Young quickly dodges and avoids Hyung-sip's punch just in time, barely missing it by a second. But when Hyung-sip tries to attack again and goes for another punch, Jun Hyung rushes in right away and blocks the hit, stepping in to protect Jin Young from getting hurt. After that tense moment, Jin Young shouts loudly at Hyung-sip, telling him to get off the mound and leave right now, which actually scares Hyung-sip and makes him back away. Watching all of this unfold, Jinho comments that this is exactly what the Titans wanted from the start, as they planned everything ahead of time just to mess with Jin Young's mind and throw him off his game. Jin Young quickly says that the Titans wanted to intimidate him and make him lose his focus on the game. Right after the fight gets broken up, the third batter from the Titans arrives at the field and steps up to bat, and he thinks to himself that Jin Young will keep losing his control because of the bench-clearing brawl that just happened, and Jin Young will probably be mad and angry, which gives him a high chance of not being able to throw properly anymore. After that, Jin Young throws his first pitch toward home plate and the umpire calls it a strike. The players from the Titans start wondering why their batter isn't swinging at the ball, since it looks like something he could easily hit. However, the batter thinks to himself that Jin Young must still be shaken after the bench-clearing fight they just had, since it was probably the first one he's ever seen in his career. He figures that if Jin Young threw the first pitch like that, then the second one will likely be more serious and careful because Jin Young will want to prove he's not scared. However, the second pitch that Jin Young throws also gets called a strike, leaving the batter even more tense than before. Then, when Jin Young throws the third ball, it turns out to be a perfect splitter, and the batter completely misses it, striking out right away. After that clean strikeout, one of the senior batters from the Titans steps up to the plate for his turn, thinking to himself that Jin Young had actually planned everything. He realizes that Jin Young threw the first 2 strikes by pretending to make mistakes pitches on purpose and then tricked the batter into swinging at the third one, finishing him off perfectly. After that, the first pitch becomes a foul and the second one is another strike because it is a splitter, but on the last pitch the batter expects another splitter and swings for it, only to miss and send the ball straight into the catcher's glove. Jinho remembers how, in past bench-clearing brawls when players rush the field and trample the space around him, he loses his temper and feels hot. However, he holds the batter tight in those moments. He vows he never lets anyone set foot on his mound again and does whatever it takes to crush anyone who tries. That day, when Kim Jinho only had splitters and four-seam fastballs in his pitching style, he managed to get 11 strikeouts in a row and set a brand new record in the major leagues that no one had ever achieved before. But now, that same moment from history is happening all over again, as Jin Young also strikes out 11 batters in a row for the first time in his career. As a reward for his incredible performance, he even receives a special platinum roulette ticket. Right after this amazing moment, Jinho starts teasing Jin Young again like he always does, saying that any normal pitcher would be celebrating and enjoying the moment right now. But Jin Young answers that the game isn't over yet, so there's no reason for him to celebrate just yet. Jinho then points out that Jin Young's batters have not got a single point scored yet, and that is why they are sitting there in the dugout in a bad mood feeling disappointed. However, the team members start wondering why, even though their pitcher struck out 11 batters in a row and played an almost perfect game, they're still not winning, which feels really embarrassing for all of them. Meanwhile, Jin-young thinks to himself that if the game keeps going like this without any runs scored, he'll probably have to go back up to pitch again in the 8th inning, and if things don't change, he might even end up being recorded as the losing pitcher despite having such an amazing performance. Just then at that exact moment, Jun-young gets ready and prepares to go to the mound to bat for their team, and this gives a huge relief to Jin-young, who was worried about the situation. Right after that, the game keeps going and Jun-young gets 2 strike balls called on him one after another, which makes him start wondering what's going on with the opposing team's pitcher and why he's throwing like that. Jun-young thinks carefully and realizes that the pitcher seems to be using only 2 types of pitches, relying completely on fastballs and forkballs without mixing anything else. Then, all of a sudden, the pitcher throws a forkball straight toward home plate, and Jun-young swings hard, sending the ball soaring deep into the outfield. The Angels players jump up from the bench and cheer loudly, celebrating the powerful hit with pure excitement. Meanwhile, over at the Angels advertising team office, everyone is going wild with excitement, and one after another, the staff members ask the team leader if they can write an article about Jin-young. But the team leader refuses each time and tells them to skip it. Then another worker mentions that someone requested an interview with Jin-young, but the team leader tells him to skip that too. After a while, the team leader starts losing his mind, trying hard to come up with the perfect word to describe Jin-young. Just then, one of the staff members suggests calling him Woo as his nickname. While all of this is happening at the office, Jin-young is in the washroom, lost in thought about something important. Jin-young then quickly uses the diamond roulette ticket that he got earlier as a reward for his performance in the game. The diamond roulette spins and gives Jin-young a special ability called Ball Master, but Jin-young decides to skip another roulette spin and save it for later. After skipping that one, he then earns another skill named Steel Man from the system, and this particular skill catches Jin-young's eyes and gets his attention immediately. On the other hand, the ground and field are cheerful and full of celebration for the Angels team because of their victory today, and even the interviewers and reporters are getting ready to start conducting interviews of the players who performed well. Right after the celebration, the reporter named Young-eun meets up with Jin-young to take his interview and ask him questions about his game. However, Jin-young is completely stunned and dying inside because he has never seen a goddess like her before in his entire life. Young-eun congratulates Jin-young for becoming the new star in professional baseball history after his incredible performance, but Jin-young doesn't say anything back and just keeps staring at her blankly, looking like a clown who can't think straight. After a few awkward seconds, he suddenly snaps out of it and starts talking nonsense, saying random things that don't even make sense. The interviewer is completely shocked by his strange behavior, so she quickly tells him that the interview time is limited and she has to wrap it up right away. At the end of the interview, Jin-young says his now famous word, which is just woo, and nothing else. That one simple word surprises everyone watching so much that even the interviewer and the cameraman get emotional and start tearing up. Later that night, after everything has settled down, Jin-young walks back to his room feeling embarrassed and awkward because he ended up getting scolded for shouting during the live broadcast. However, when he gets there, Jin-ho then tells Jin-young to show him his stat window and check his abilities, but Jin-ho's mood gets completely frustrated to see such high skills and abilities that Jin-young has gotten so easily. After that, Jin-young notices Jun-young fast asleep and snoring loudly, which makes him wonder how late he must have stayed out practicing last night. Just then, Jin-ho starts yelling at Jin-young, saying that since he's now a starting pitcher, he needs to start managing his stamina properly. But it's clear that Jin-ho is also annoyed about Jin-young getting so many new skills recently. Jin-young thinks to himself that out of all his A-rank pitches, he only has the 2-seam and the splitter, and both are already really good. However, Jin-ho says that this kind of thinking shows Jin-young's immaturity. He explains that there are other types of pitches he should work on raising to master rank 2, like the 4-seam, curveball, and slider. Hearing that, Jin-young asks if Jin-ho means that he should wait until all his other pitches reach A rank first. Suddenly, Jin-young upgrades his splitter to the master rank S, which shocks Jin-ho, so Jin-young says that he knows he was baiting him. 3 days later at Ravens Park, the Angels win their game at the end of the 11th inning, and everyone is shocked that after 3 straight matches against the Ravens, the Angels come out as the final winners. However, the commentator keeps focusing on Jin-young, wondering out loud if he's praying or doing some kind of religious ritual on the mound. Out of nowhere, Jin-young suddenly shouts something random, leaving everyone watching completely confused. After shouting, Jin Young turns to Jinho and asks if this yelling thing is actually supposed to work like he said it would, wondering if it really has any effect. Jinho answers confidently, saying that Jin Young can be happy and healthy just by shouting whenever he feels like it. But Jin Young immediately says he doesn't believe him at all, reminding Jinho that last time he claimed Jin Young's pitching speed would increase if he wore thongs on his feet, which turned out to be completely false. The next day, it's the first game of the series between the Angels and the Gocheok Rangers, and Yunseo comes all the way to the stadium just to watch Jin Young pitch. Yunseo believes that everything would have been alright if she didn't drink that day and scolded him. Just then, Jin Young arrives and Yunseo tells him that she came to check the readiness for the game to cheer him, but Jin Young notices that she is actually blushing right now. After that, the two of them sit down at the desk and for a while, neither of them says a word. Then, Jin Young finally breaks the silence and asks Yunseo if she came because she still doesn't trust him yet. He tells her that he understands since she's someone who wants to see the Angels win more than anyone else, but now he also truly wants the team to win just as much. Hearing this, Yunseo asks him which player he looks up to the most, and Jin Young replies that he respects Jinho the most. However, when she asks if he plans to copy Jinho's pitching style, Jin Young says that he's going to try something different today as he plans to pitch like Tom Glavine. After that, the match starts, and the first batter from the Gocheok Rangers is Daeyoon, who thinks to himself that Jin Young's pitching today looks different from before, feeling a bit unstable and not as sharp as usual. As he keeps thinking about it, Daeyoon feels that with pitching like this, it's hard to see a moment where the Rangers could really have the upper hand against him. Furthermore, he thinks that especially since Jin Young already gave one based on balls in the first inning and now has two runners on base in the second inning already. However, Daeyoon also thinks that the Angels team did not research on them, but then suddenly Jin Young throws his ball towards the plate. But it gets called a strike ball because the batter is not paying attention and gets caught off guard. Right after the call, Daeyoon then yells at the referee, saying that the course of the ball was on the outside of the strike zone and should not count, but the referee does not listen to him at all. Afterward, Jin Young throws another ball and the batter thinks that 'tis the same course as the last throw and it gets another ball. Just then, another batter arrives and Jin Young throws another strike ball at him, but the batter gets confused and asks the referee if he is sure about that. Jin Young then throws another strike ball towards home plate, and the batter again asks the referee about whether it was really a strike or not, so the referee tells him to be quiet. Right after that warning, the batter gets struck out completely with another pitch ball from Jin Young that catches him off guard. Jin Young then earns several rewards and bonuses from the system for his flawless pitching performance in the third inning without allowing any runs. Jinho then appreciates and praises Jin Young for his work, saying that he did not know Jin Young would pitch this well today because Jinho actually thought that Jin Young would lose control on balls by the time the third inning came around. After that, Jinho explains to him that the strike zone has gotten bigger since the more balls there are, the less strict the referee becomes about calling a strike. Then, the fifth inning starts with the Angels on the attack, but their batters keep striking out one after another because of Kang Hoon, the opposing team's pitcher, who throws pitches at a speed of 152 km per hour. Kang Hoon feels that his body is light and that he can control his throws perfectly, but when he looks over, he sees Jin Young also striking out his teammates just as easily. The Gocheok coach then asks one of his staff members how many pitches Jin Young has thrown so far, and the man replies that it's now 79 pitches up to the fifth inning, yet surprisingly, Jin Young doesn't show any signs of getting tired. Still, the coach thinks to himself that they need to come up with a new plan from their side soon. After that, Kang Hoon returns to the mound and strikes out another Angels batter, making the whole crowd cheer loudly for him. Meanwhile, Yunseo thinks to herself that by the sixth inning, he has already thrown 83 pitches, but pitchers who go for perfect games usually don't get tired even after passing 100 throws, and it feels like the game's atmosphere is already in their favor. She also notices that Kang Hoon is still throwing pitches in the 150s even after reaching 100 throws, which makes her believe that he truly has God-gifted shoulders, and if the Angels want to win this match, they will need something close to a miracle to make it happen. After that, it becomes Jin Young's turn to pitch again and he notices that the other team's batting order has changed. Jin Young starts wondering if the batter is planning to swing first and think later. He also thinks that the batter will probably swing without any hesitation the moment the ball enters the strike zone, but if the pitch that reaches there is a two-seam fastball, then it could completely change the flow of the game. Afterward, Jin Young throws the pitch and successfully strikes the batter out, which earns him a roulette ticket from his system. Soon after, the seventh inning ends, and it turns out that every single out in that inning was also from a strikeout. Seeing that, one of the players from the other team starts thinking that Jin Young might actually be pitching a perfect game, something that has never happened in Korea before. He figures that the lower-end batters will be coming up in the 7th inning, so instead of trying to raise their on-base percentage, they'll probably focus on dragging out as many pitches as they can to wear Jin Young down. Right after thinking about this plan, Jin Young manages to strike out another batter, and just like that, the opposing team's players keep getting out one after another without landing a single hit. Still, Jin Young feels that something is definitely off about how the game is going. After getting another out, he strikes out yet another batter and starts thinking that the other team keeps changing their plans and strategies depending on his pitching style and what kind of throws he uses. Even so, he feels lucky that he's been able to hold them off until now, but he also worries that if he isn't careful, they might finally manage to hit one sooner. Moreover, Jin Young thinks that the other team has a proactive and strategic coach, which is definitely their strongest point. After that, Junhyung steps up to the mound with full confidence like always and hits an amazing shot just like he usually does. Meanwhile, the Angels reporter watches everything and thinks that it's time to write an article about Jin Young, describing him as the pitcher with a face that has allowed no hits and no runs so far in the game. After that, the other team's perfect game finally ends and the whole crowd starts cheering loudly for Jin Young instead. Seeing this sudden change, Jinho comments that everyone who had been cheering for Kang Hun's perfect game is now cheering for Jin Young, but he also wonders why Jin Young is walking so slowly. It turns out that Jin Young is doing it on purpose so the crowd's attention stays on him longer and their cheers become even louder. After that, Woo Young from the other team steps up to the mound, thinking that it's only a 1-point difference and that they still have a good chance to catch up. Jin Young throws his pitch, but the ball ends up hitting the batter's body, which leaves Woo Young completely shocked. However, Jin Young doesn't seem bothered at all and doesn't care about following Tom Glavine's style anymore. Meanwhile, Woo Young thinks that first pitch actually makes things easier for him because now, if he just focuses on picking the balls that fall right into the strike zone, he can easily hit one like that without much trouble. Afterward, Jin Young throws another ball towards home plate and Woo Young thinks to himself that this throw is definitely a splitter pitch coming his way. However, the ball suddenly disappears in the middle of its path and drops down, and Woo Young gets called for a strike ball because he swings and misses completely. After that amazing pitch, Jin Young goes on to strike out 3 batters in a row, earning several points along with a platinum roulette ticket from the system as a reward for his incredible performance. Right after that, Jin Young does his signature Woo celebration move, similar to Ronaldo's famous sway celebration that everyone recognizes. Then, all of a sudden and without any warning, the interviewer rushes over and quickly pulls Jin Young to her side of the field so she can interview him right away while he's still filled with excitement from his outstanding game. However, Jin Young doesn't really want to do the interview because he knows that if he doesn't spin the roulette soon, he won't be able to focus properly on it. So, he decides to spin the roulette right there on the field while also answering the interviewer's questions at the same time. As the roulette stops, Jin Young receives an ability called the Pitching Enhancement Elixir, which instantly makes his day. After that, he ignores her second question and spins the roulette once more, and this time, he earns a new skill called Ace, which boosts all of his pitching abilities even further. Afterward, Jin Young's no-hit no-run got the attention of many baseball fans and the mass media, so the next day it was another game in Gocheok. However, in the second of the 3 consecutive games, the other team got their revenge on the no-hit no-run game with a complete shutout. In the end of the 9th inning, Junghyun of the Rangers Gocheok hits a game-changing 2-run home run. Regardless of Jin Young's performance, the 2 losses against the Gocheok put a hole in the fans' hearts. The next day, Jin Young analyzed the Devils while Junhyung sleeps. Juno says that the Devils are currently in 4th place and have been playing much better recently, but Jin Young thinks that they should first watch games 1 and 2 before making any plans. After that, Jin Young dresses up neatly in formal clothes and goes to visit Jinho's grave since it's his death anniversary. However, once he gets there, he and Jinho start arguing like usual because Jin Young didn't bring any meat for him to eat. Then, all of a sudden, Yoonseo arrives at the grave as well to pay her respects to Jinho. She tells him that when she was younger, Jinho used to play baseball with her often, and he even knew her grandfather, who was her biggest role model growing up. After that, Yoonseo explains to Jin Young what team down means. It's when a team gets an early lead in the game, but because they're not strong or skilled enough, they eventually fall apart and lose in the end. As she thinks to herself, Yoonseo realizes how amazing it would be if the Angels had a pitcher like the legendary Jinho on their team right now, and without even noticing it, she starts to expect more from Jin Young, hoping that he could become that kind of player someday. However, Jin Young replies by saying that if just one average player gets better, it won't really change the whole team's performance. But if that player is a real leader who can guide the team to victory every time, then the entire team will start to improve and grow stronger together. After saying that, Jin Young explains further that instead of just being teammates who play side by side on the same roster, if there's someone on the team who everyone can look up to as a role model, then the team can truly change. He then tells her that it might be hard for her to trust him right away, but if she chooses to believe in him and give him her support, he will do everything he can to lead the Angels to victory. Hearing that, Yunseo replies that what he's saying sounds risky, because if he gets the organization's full support but fails to deliver good results, both he and she will face serious consequences. Still, Yunseo starts feeling a bit suspicious and asks him what he personally gains from winning the Angels, but before he can answer, her stomach suddenly growls. After that, Jin Young places some food at Jinho's grave and starts walking away, but on his way out, he runs into a white-haired lady who asks if he came to pay his condolences. The woman then tells him that he should clean up the food he left there before he goes, and hearing that, Jin Young quickly remembers about it. A moment later, he finds out that the woman is actually Jinho's mother and she asks him if he came all the way there because he is one of Jinho's fans. However, she then asks why it had to be Jinho, since there are so many other players to look up to. Jin Young and Yunseo both answer that it's because Jinho was an incredible person who completely dominated the major league. The woman sighs and thinks to herself that Jinho left everything behind too soon, passing away before even reaching 40, but she still feels thankful that a young couple came all the way to this quiet place to visit him. Hearing that, both Jin Young and Yunseo panic and start freaking out, quickly waving their hands and explaining that they're not a couple at all, clearing up the misunderstanding as fast as they can. Jin Young introduces himself properly as the Angels team's pitcher who plays for them, and Yunseo introduces herself as the operations manager who works behind the scenes for the organization. Furthermore, Jinho's mother speaks up and says emotionally that Jinho really wanted a World Series ring more than anything in his career, but he never got one and left the world like this without achieving his biggest dream. Hearing those sad words from his mother, Jin Young finally realizes that Jinho was a player who had achieved countless records and accomplishments throughout his baseball career. However, there was still one thing missing from everything he had achieved: the World Series championship title, the one victory he had always dreamed of but never managed to win. Moreover, Jinho's mother tells them to carry on her son's wish as well, saying they should always aim high, and she adds that when she looks at Jin Young, she feels like she can see her son in him. After talking for hours, they all decide to leave, and as Jin Young walks away, he thinks to himself that the story about Jinho losing a game when he was 8 years old and getting so upset that he refused to eat for 3 days finally makes perfect sense now. After that, Jin Young asks Jinho if he wants to say something to his mother, but Jinho replies that he doesn't, because the last thing he ever told her was that he would come back with a winning ring, yet he ended up like this, so he feels he doesn't deserve to say anything now. Hearing that, Jin Young tells him that he can win in his place and bring back the World Series winning ring for him. Suddenly, Jin Young's mother accidentally picks up the baseball from Jinho's grave, and when she decides to throw it back to Jin Young, she ends up throwing it exactly the same way Jinho used to. Later, while they're leaving, Yunseo turns to Jin Young and asks if he wants a ride back. On their way, Jin Young starts acting like a broke guy again, saying he feels guilty for enjoying something so luxurious. Yunseo glances at him and says he looks a little too comfortable for someone who's supposed to feel bad, but Jin Young quickly replies that it's only because her car is really comfortable. After a while, Jin Young offers her some food, thinking she might be hungry, but Yunseo says she already ate plenty of the food that Jinho's mother brought. Then, remembering his words from earlier, she mentions that he said one leader could change an entire team and asks if he can really take responsibility for them all. Jin Young says that the leader he envisions has the power to do so, but Yunseo asks why that leader has to be him. Furthermore, she says that she admits he is skilled enough as a player, but skill alone isn't enough to be a leader of a team. She then tells him that she is now a representative of the Angels, and before appointing a new leader, she wants to ask him something important. If he were to become the team's leader, could he truly guarantee that the Angels would win this year? However, Jin Young asks her how many players on the team are actually betting their lives on achieving victory. Jin Young explains that only player on the team who truly aims for victory and cares about winning is Junhyang, while the rest of the players are more focused on maintaining their individual skills to secure long-term free agent contracts for themselves in the future. After explaining that, Jin Young then adds that he is completely different from them because his only goal and mission is to make sure that this year, the Angels team finally lifts the championship trophy and wins it all. Moreover, Jin Young says that he wants to change this negative atmosphere inside the Angels team by using his power and influence as the team leader to motivate everyone. After that, not a single word is spoken between them until they finally arrive at their destination, But then Yunseo makes a promise to him that the Angels organization will wholeheartedly support him from this day forward no matter what happens. Afterward, she gives Jin Young the car keys and tells him that this car is proof of the promise they are making together, and she decides to give him the power and responsibility of being the team leader so that he can take the Angels team to victory this season. Yunseo goes back to her own car where her driver is waiting for her and tells him to take her to the Hyunsung Group headquarters building right away. On her way to the headquarters, Yunseo thinks deeply about everything Jin Young said and realizes he's right. The Angels haven't won a championship in more than 20 years, and if anyone can change that this year, it's her and Jin Young working together. Later that night, when everything settles down, Jinho reminds Jin Young seriously about their deal that if the team wins the championship, he will leave and let Jin Young move forward toward playing in the major league without him. The next day, it's the first game against Suwon Dogs and Jin Young continues to hold the mound alone, pitching a scoreless game until the 9th inning. However, due to the Angels lineup to refuse to break the game enters extra innings. At the beginning of the 10th inning, Junyoung's home run made the score 1-0 and then Jin Young appeared as well, pitching 10 shutouts. Moreover, in the ongoing 3-game series against the Daegu Raves, Chansey provokes Jin Young but Jin Young, who was originally scheduled to pitch in the 3rd game, willingly accepts the provocation and ends up pitching the 1st game. Because of Jin Young's special skill called Ace, he manages to defeat the opposing pitcher Chansey and wins the shutout game without allowing any runs at all. Moving forward in the season, at the 2nd game against the Gwangju Dolphins team, the game goes into extra overtime innings at 0 points against 0 points until the 9th inning with no winner yet. Unlike Jin Young, who shows brilliant and amazing performance by winning 3 consecutive shutout games in a row, the Angels batters begin to feel fear and pressure about not being able to score runs. Jin Young tells Jinho that he pitched a full 11-inning game yesterday which was exhausting, and it was only possible for him to do that because of the Iron Horse skill he has that gives him extra stamina. After that, Jin Young checks his stat window on the system and thinks to himself that he already has a wide range of different pitches and 3 master rank skills in his arsenal, so there is really nothing for him to complain about right now. Jinho then suggests to Jin Young that he should try pitching with his left hand instead of his right to develop a new skill, but Jin Young instantly rejects the idea without giving it a second thought. A little while later, Jin Young walks out of the dormitory and gets into his car, the one he worked hard for and saved money for over a long time to finally buy. As he starts the engine, Jinho asks why he's leaving so early in the morning when he just pitched a full 11 innings yesterday as the starting pitcher, saying he should be resting his body instead of heading out again. However, Jin Young says that the former team manager, Yunseo, promised him something, so he wants to see it with his own eyes. After that, he heads into the locker room to check how his seniors played, but he finds everyone sitting there with gloomy faces. He quickly realizes that Yunseo must have taken some kind of action toward the team, and it caused a chain reaction among them. Just then, a reporter shows up and pulls Jin Young away for an interview. While he's gone, the players start gossiping about how the former team manager lent one of her favorite cars to Jin Young, and some even start assuming that they might be dating. Meanwhile, Jin Young tells the interviewer honestly that pitching a complete game in 11 innings may be a one-time thing that he accomplished, but it is not something he wants to do twice because it was exhausting, but if he has to take the mound again in the 10th inning or later, he will give his all and everything he has to dominate the opponent and come out on top. Once the interview is finally over and done with, Jin Young wonders to himself that he made a clear request to the squad and told them directly that they should score runs up to the 7th inning when he takes the mound next time so he does not have to pitch so long. 3 days later after that interview, on the day of the Angels vs Devils first game of their series, the reporters talk about Jin Young taking the mound again after he threw an incredible 11 innings in his last game just a few days before. One of them thinks that the coaching staff surely advised Jin Young to take sufficient rest, but Jin Young volunteered to take the mound. Jin Young further thinks to himself that he will use this opportunity to solidify his position on the team because he received a personal car as a gift, and in the interviews that followed after that, he issued a stern warning to his team to play properly and give their best effort. Meanwhile, Jinho tells Jin Young that the Angels batters are quite intimidated and scared by Yunseo's presence because their batter is trembling and shaking but still standing there at the mound trying to hit. Moreover, Jinho thinks seriously that the other team's pitcher named Justin Butler is not an ordinary pitcher at all and has real talent. Jinho thinks that even if Justin's fastball is not extremely fast compared to other pitchers, with that level of control and movement on his pitches, he can definitely succeed in the United States major leagues as well. Right after that, Jin Young prepares to step onto the mound to start pitching, thinking to himself that their opponent looks like a team that has already given up on trying to score any runs against him. Then, the Devils team's batter named Jong-hoon walks up to the plate feeling confident that he will not be beaten easily this time around. Ever since their last game against Jin-young, Jong-hoon and his team have been studying and analyzing all of Jin-young's pitching patterns and movements carefully, and now he believes that he can handle any pitch that comes his way even with his eyes closed. However, right after the game begins and the first pitches are thrown, Jong-hoon takes 2 quick strikes in a row and realizes with shock that the way Jin-young controls and moves his pitches is on a completely different level from anyone else he has ever faced before. Afterward, Jin-young sits back on the bench, wondering what's wrong with Jin-ho and why he is staring at him like that. Jin-ho then says that he didn't do anything particularly wrong but 'tis just his first time seeing a psycho like him. However, Jin-ho soon realizes that the word psycho is a bit harsh and too mean to say to someone, so he apologizes to Jin-young for using that word. Hearing that apology, Jin-young feels disgusted and weirded out because it is the first time Jin-ho has ever apologized to him for saying something like that in their entire relationship. Right after that awkward moment, Jin-ho tells Jin-young that when God first created humans, he gave them different abilities and traits to carry, and one of those was the feeling of burden and pressure that most people experience. However, Jin-ho thinks aloud that it seems like Jin-young doesn't have that burden feature at all, as if God forgot to give it to him. He points out that even though Jin-young's build and posture make him look bigger and stronger than others, when you actually look closely, his body weight and frame are smaller and lighter than they appear. Later on, Jin-young thinks that their main focus right now should be on simply getting on base, even if it means getting hit by a pitch. He believes the team's top priority is to build up the batting order slowly and steadily instead of swinging wildly or getting greedy for big hits. However, Jin-young soon realizes that the real issue isn't with their lineup but with the opposing team's pitcher, Butler, who isn't leaving even the tiniest opening for them to take advantage of. Afterward, Jin-ho asks him if he truly believes they can score any runs today if things keep going like this, since Butler's pitching so far has been nothing short of perfect. Hearing that, Jin-young realizes that Jin-ho is absolutely right because those fastballs flying at over 140 miles per hour from a height of more than 2 meters are nearly impossible to hit, even if a batter knows exactly when they're coming. Jin-young then starts wondering if there's any possible way to deal with that, but Jin-ho casually tells him in his own strange way that he should just use factual violence as the solution. However, Jin-ho then starts explaining about what it truly means to be an ace, saying that aces are the kind of players who go beyond the point of simply wanting to win. They become so consumed by their desire for victory that they can't accept losing to anyone else. After that, Jin-ho goes on to explain everything in detail and eventually brings up Kang-hoon, reminding Jin-young about the time he ruined Kang-hoon's perfect game. He says that Kang-hoon must have been extremely frustrated and angry with himself for being caught off guard by a rookie like Jin-young, losing his no-hit and no-run record, and ending up being replaced as the pitcher. Meanwhile, Butler gets 3 strikeouts and everyone starts cheering for him. Afterward, Jin-young steps back onto the mound, ready to face the next round of batters. The Devils hitter swings with all his strength but can't even make contact with the ball. He thinks to himself that his batting average this month is .370, the best of his entire season, yet even when he predicts where the pitch will go, it's still impossible to hit. Then, Jin-young throws another sharp pitch, and the batter goes down with a strikeout. The next 2 batters follow the same fate, unable to handle his throws, and just like that, the 4th inning ends with 3 consecutive strikeouts. Meanwhile, one of Jin-young's fans in the stands starts wondering why he hasn't done his famous woo celebration this time and guesses that maybe his throat is sore from shouting it too much in recent games. Meanwhile, Jin-ho tells Jin-young confidently that he's going to make sure he reaches the major league one day because he can already imagine him standing on that mound, provoking the batters and throwing blazing fastballs at 100 miles per hour. Afterward, Jin-ho realizes that the game is unfolding exactly the way he described a fiercely intense battle where one side ends up battered and dragged off the field by their teammates. However, he also understands that such tension isn't easy to create since these are professional players who go through endless training and practice just to keep their cool and not fall for any provocations from their opponents. Meanwhile, the players from the Devils team are really furious and angry at Jin-young, and they cannot wait to beat him and get revenge on the field. Another guy from the team speaks up and says that based on his analysis and observations, he concluded that Jin-young does not consider them as real opponents at the moment and does not take them seriously. The player explains further that tigers always do their best when hunting rabbits no matter how small the prey is, but they do not roar just because they succeeded in catching one rabbit, so he thinks that they cannot criticize someone for being quiet and calm on the mound during the game. However, another batter says that Jin-young has improved more than their analysis showed and they can't even get on base. Hearing that, One of the other players gets irritated and says that no matter how good a pitcher might be, they'll eventually break down, and until they find a way to create a scoring opportunity, they just need to make sure not to give up any runs. After that, Butler closes out the 5th inning with a strikeout, and this time, he lets out a loud howl that ends up annoying everyone on the field. As the bottom of the 5th inning begins, the real showdown starts. A tense chicken race between Jin Young and Butler, with both pitchers giving everything they've got and showing off incredible throws. However, even in the 6th inning, Jin Young keeps his momentum strong, finishing it off with more strikeouts and ending the inning with another clean 3 outs. Meanwhile, the crowd keeps wondering why Jin Young keeps glancing at the scoreboard so often, trying to figure out what's going through his mind. On the other hand, the Angels batters start thinking that they have to find a way to score no matter what if they want to win this game. While watching from the dugout, Jin Young notices something unusual. Butler's arm angle looks slightly lower today whenever he throws his slider. He starts to wonder if Butler's payoff pitch for the day is the slider, and maybe without realizing it, Butler exposed his weakness because he was being too conscious of Jin Young's presence on the field. Afterward, everyone's mood changes and thanks Junhyang for analyzing that perfectly. Then, the batter of Angels manages to hit a home run shot and the score just ties just like that. Afterward, Junhyang's hit reaches the top of the spectator stands as he does back-to-back home runs. Following that, Butler decides to leave the mound as they can't afford to lose another point. Finally, the 7th inning begins, and it's the Devils' turn to go on the offensive as Jin Young makes his way back to the mound. Everyone in the stands starts to wonder why he keeps glancing up at the scoreboard so often, even though he's already pitching an incredible game with an outstanding record so far. Some fans think he might be doing it on purpose, as if he's trying to send a message or keep his focus sharp. Meanwhile, the Devils players are visibly agitated, getting worked up over Jin Young's constant looks toward the scoreboard. The first batter up for the Devils is Young Hoon, who, despite feeling a bit nervous, has always been the ace of his team ever since his days in the small leagues. He's held that position and never once let it slip away. However, Jin Young uses his fighting spirit ability and other abilities together to throw the ball with everything he has, which reaches 139 km/h as a fastball, and just like that the batter gets out without making any contact. Right after that success, Jin Young manages to strike out a whole bunch of other batters one after another, and now it is already the bottom of the 9th inning with only 3 outs left until he achieves a perfect game. Jin Young strikes out another batter and lets out his iconic "woo" shout, which visibly angers the Devils. However, he quickly reminds himself that it's the bottom of the 9th inning with 2 outs, and there's only one more batter standing between him and a perfect game. Determined, he decides to throw his most perfect pitch yet to quickly settle the game and determine the winner. At the same time, he notices that the catcher, Senior Hakan, is also visibly exhausted, which means there's a high chance he might misjudge a splitter-like changeup if he's not careful. Moreover, the fielders are also feeling a lot of pressure from playing such tight defense, and there's always the risk that one of them might miss a ground ball and accidentally let a runner get on base because of an error. Then, Jin Young decides to throw a changeup, and even though the batter manages to hit it, Jin Young reacts quickly and catches the ball with ease. With that final play, the game ends with the Angels' victory. Jin Young then receives a diamond roulette ticket from the system as a reward for completing a perfect game and successfully achieving what he set out to do. Right after that, the commentator announces excitedly that the first ever perfect game pitcher from Korea is born on the Angels team, and it has been so long since the Angels achieved such an incredible and historic record as this. However, Jin Young manages to create history as the only one pitcher who managed to get all 27 outs without allowing a single player to reach first base during the entire game. Right after celebrating with his team, the interviewer quickly comes over and takes his interview to ask him about his feelings, and Jin Young gives a sweet and heartfelt message for his fans that supported him until the very end of the game. After thanking the fans, Jin Young then says emotionally that the only way to repay this gratitude and appreciation is by leading the Angels to victory in the championship, so he is planning on giving his all and everything he has, even if he has to burn himself out completely, to bring the victory to the team. Later that night, Jinho scolds Jin Young for openly talking about winning and making promises to the fans. He gives a warning that if they fail to win the championship, the disappointment and resentment from the fans will be even stronger and more painful than ever before. However, Jin Young reflects on it and accepts that, since he made his statement publicly in front of everyone, he will have to face the consequences no matter what happens in the end. Right after that, Jin Young opens his roulette rewards from the system and he realizes that this diamond roulette has really flashy and impressive skills available, so he decides to spin it and see what he gets. The roulette spins around and around, and then it finally gives Jin Young a special skill known as Fireballer. Later that night, Jin-young goes out on some running around the field to exercise when he runs into Junhyang, who is training there as well at the same time. Junhyang tells Jin-young directly that he is not sure about other players on the team and their commitment, but he is determined and focused to put the Angels at the top of the rankings this year no matter what. After running together for a while, Jin-young gets done with his running and finishes his workout, but he wonders to himself how many more times Junhyang plans on running laps around the field. All of a sudden, without any warning, Yoon-seo appears out of nowhere and scares Jin-young by showing up unexpectedly, and she congratulates him warmly on his perfect game that he pitched earlier today. She then tells him that she had some work with the operations team and stopped by to personally give her congratulations. Some time passes in silence, and she starts feeling suffocated being around him, thinking it would be better to just convey her message properly and leave. However, Jin-young breaks the quiet, saying that in today's interview he promised to lead the Angels to victory, and those weren't empty words, as he genuinely intends to do whatever it takes to make the Angels win this year. Then, he asks a favor that if he wins 3 or more games in the Korean series, she should grant him whatever he wishes. Hearing that, Yoon-seo completely loses her composure, thinking he might be some kind of freak. She quickly decides to leave, saying she needs some time to think things over. Later, Jin-ho asks Jin-young if he's a big fan of senior Choi Dong-x, who won the Korea series 3 times. 3 days after that, the Angels staff notices a flood of comments online cursing Jin-young, but another staff member shrugs it off, saying there's no reason not to expect that. He explains that since Jin-young openly declared he would win the championship, it's only natural that people would criticize him. He adds that Jin-young is already an exceptional player, so it makes sense for him to be compared to a monster like Maeda X. However, the other staff member says that if Jin-young reached the mid-140 km range he would be worthy of challenging the major league. The other guy says that if he hits 140 km, all the scouts from Korea and Japan will flock to him. Afterward, the Angels win the series against the Devils with a 2-1 record. In the first game against the Hawks, the Angels' relaxed defense makes several mistakes right from the first inning, giving away their lead, and their batting lineup struggles, striking out repeatedly. In the end, the Angels lost the first game with a score of 14-5. On the day of the third game against the Hawks, everyone in the stadium starts cheering for Jin-young, believing that he will lead the team to victory this time. The first batter from the Hawks team steps up to the mound, but the Hawks coach thinks that Jin-young looks as excited as a kid throwing a ball for the first time. Another coach reassures him not to worry, saying that no pitchers have ever escaped Jin-young's careful analysis. Meanwhile, the batter feels nervous too, realizing it's his first time facing such a wild pitcher who laughs like a maniac. As soon as he gets into position, Jin-young throws a fastball straight into the catcher's mitt perfectly, and the pitch registers at exactly 140 km/h. Earlier before the game started, Jin-young realized that his speed had been increased by 4 km/h because of the fireball skill he got from the roulette system. After realizing this, Jin-young kept spinning the roulette over and over again until his pitch speed would reach exactly 140 km/h like he wanted. Back to the present, Jin-ho is mad and confused that Jin-young's speed suddenly jumped to 140 km/h without any warning or explanation. However, after calming down a bit, Jin-ho then asks Jin-young if this speed increase is really good for him because his stamina consumption is doubled now and he will get tired faster. On the other hand, the batter from the opposing team thinks to himself that it is impressive that Jin-young threw a pitch that reached 140 km/h in speed. Meanwhile, the Hawks coach watches from the dugout and thinks that even though Jin-young's speed has reached 140 km/h now, they would still win this match without too much trouble. The coach thinks that a player who normally throws a 130 km/h pitch, even if they grit their teeth and push themselves to throw 140, they are still just pitchers capable of throwing a 130 km/h pitch at their core. However, Jin-young proves him wrong by throwing 2 more pitches that both reach 140 km/h, which surprises everyone watching, including the coach. In the end, Jin-young manages to strike out 3 batters in a row and wins the match for his team. Afterward, the game gets over and Jin-young does his usual Siu celebration as he wants to be the Temu version of Ronaldo so badly that he does it every single time. Hakan then asks him if they should go for barbecue on Monday, but the other guy reminds him that they are under weight management now and cannot eat whatever they want. Jin-ho then tells Jin-young that even though they are not united as a team, he should still enjoy the joy of victory together with everyone else. A guy then calls over Jin-young and tells him that as soon as the award-winning player interview is over, he should call manager Yoon-seo right away without any delay. Hearing that, Jin-young gets nervous and asks why he should do that all of a sudden, so the guy says that it is the instruction from the coach and he does not know the exact reason, but it should not be anything bad at all. He then leaves the room, reminding him not to get locked in the bathroom again and to call her right away if anything happens. He also tells Jin-young that Yoon-seo also mentioned it herself, but for today's interview, he should finish it properly in a normal way without any problems. Later that night, Jin-young goes out to a fancy restaurant where Yoon-seo orders some expensive dishes for them to enjoy together. Yoon-seo mentions that it looks like he is keeping well with his abstinence from alcohol during the season, so she gives her congratulations on today's victory and on setting a record of consecutive scoreless innings that is truly impressive. She further tells him that his self-evaluation no longer matters now, as what really matters is that when people hear the word angels, they would immediately think of Jin-young and his amazing accomplishments. After hearing that compliment, Jin-young starts blushing with embarrassment and happiness. Yoon-seo then tells him that if he wins more than 3 games, she said she would grant him any wish, so they are here to fulfill that condition. However, Jin-young does not reply to her, which makes her embarrassed, and she thinks that she should have said it normally through a call or text message instead of in person. Jin-young then quickly stands up from his seat and says that he will definitely bring the Angels to the top of the league no matter what. He says that after winning 3 games in the Korean series, he will tell her his wish right away without any hesitation or delay. It turns out that everyone in the restaurant wonders if Jin-young is proposing to her, and they even talk about the love story between a commoner and a chaebol, which seems so romantic. Yoon-seo tells him to sit down quietly instead of causing a scene here in front of all these people watching them. Afterward, the dinner is served and Jin-young is struggling to eat the steak as he has always eaten in poor restaurants and does not know the proper way to cut it. Jin-ho tells him that he should have asked for a bowl of sausage soup instead of ordering something so fancy and difficult to eat. Yoon-seo then asks him to give her a hint about his wish and where he is planning on using it for something special. Hearing that question, both Jin-ho and Jin-young get confused as they wonder what she is planning on doing with that information. She then quickly apologizes and gets awkward, saying they are still in the middle of the season and should not be thinking about those things. Jin-young then gets back to his building where he tells Jin-ho that Yoon-seo seems a bit strange today as he thinks that her face turned really red. She then started talking faster and faster than usual during their dinner. Jin-ho says that she must be drunk from the alcohol, and then Jin-young remembers the call from the other day when she was also drunk and said some weird things that did not make sense. Jin-young then gets excited and says that he is right about her being drunk, so now they should just head back to the room and play roulette together for some fun. Jin-young then gets to his room door where Junhyung opens the door and informs him that Yoo-hyun is coming back to Korea very soon. He is the left-handed pitcher who became a legend at a young age, and with the skill and audacity in the 40-year history of Korean baseball, he is also known as Lefty Kim Jin-ho by everyone who knows the sport. Feeling that Korea was too small for him and his talents, Yoo-hyun left the Hawks for the US. After joining the LA team, he seemed to be adapting well with the US by winning 35 games in 2 seasons and secured the era title, which was really impressive. Sometime later, Jin-young still remembers what Junhyung told him about Yoo-hyun coming back to Korea, and he cannot stop thinking about it. He spends his time searching about the news online and reading every article he can find, and he cannot believe that it is actually happening for real. Jin-ho then tells him that his complete game victory article is way over there on the corner of the internet, and it is so tiny that they would actually need a microscope to read it properly. Hearing that comment, Jin-young gets even more frustrated and annoyed with the entire situation. Jin-young becomes furious and tells him to open his eyes properly and see the truth about his own abilities and skills. Jin-ho then keeps irritating him by saying that he is a trash pitcher whose article got lost in the news because of a legend coming back to Korea. Jin-young wonders out loud that Yoo-hyun was doing so well in the US with his career, so why did he suddenly return to Korea without any warning? Jin-ho replies that it is because he could not hold out either with the pressure and competition. But Jin-young says that he had minor setbacks this season due to injuries but still managed 50 wins in 5 years and a decent cumulative stat overall. However, Jin-ho keeps making fun of him, but Jin-young gets angry and says that compared to Jin-ho, he is nothing special and he hopes that he is doing well and happy with his success in baseball. Jin-young then asks him if he has ever seen Yoo-hyun play in person, but Jin-ho says that they watch the major league games together every night on television at home. He explains that he is a versatile guy who can precisely place strikes in the corners of the plate, splitting the strike zone into 9 sections with perfect control, handling fastball up to 98 miles per hour with great speed, along with curves, sliders, and changeups that fool batters. Jin-young wonders why a maniac like him came back here to Korea, but Jin-ho reminds him that it is because he could not hold out anymore over there. He explains that it is because he could not climb the pinnacle of the major league any further than where he already was. Jinho then gives him an example like he made it to the big league, and in his first full season as a starting pitcher, he recorded 10 wins with an ERA in 4, so he asks what his goal for the next season would be after that. Jin-young gives a trash reply which makes Jinho angry, and he says that even Jin-young would not hold out either in that situation. Jinho says that he has to burn everything he has every season and survive like that for 1 year, 3 years, and at some point, life would feel different from an ordinary person's year because of the pressure. After that conversation, Jinho tells Jin-young that from now on, he will turn into Dr. K, which is a nickname for pitchers who excel at striking out batters with ease. Jinho tells him that he has to use dual core, which means using 2 brains at the same time during the games. However, Jin-young asks whose brain he should use together during the game to help him out with his pitches. So Jinho asks which position on the mound talks the most during a game with the team members. Jinho tells him to use the catcher, as by using the catcher closest to the batter on the field, he can maximize his strikeout ability and get better results. Jinho then tells him to interact with the catcher more often, but Jin-young replies that he is not that close with Hakan at all right now. Later on, Jin-young and Jinho go to the cafeteria to find Hakan, and Jin-young tells him that Hakan is a better catcher than he thinks he is, so if he forms a battery with him during games, he will be surprised by the outcome. One day before the 3-game series against the Masan Cheetahs, Hakan is sitting in his room thinking how hungry he is. He thinks that their pitchers are doing fine and there are not any significant issues with their performance on the field. He wonders if he is the problem that the team keeps losing games, but then Jin-young approaches him out of nowhere from behind. Jin-young asks him if he would like to eat some ramen together, but he does not want to eat, saying he is on a ban from late-night snacks because of his weight management restrictions. Hakan then asks him if he came all the way here just to ask him about ramen or if he has something he wants to talk to him about seriously. Jin-young says that from now on, he really wants to pitch only strikeouts in every game, but Hakan wonders if he was not already excellent at getting strikeouts before this. Jin-young then asks him to become his partner in the next match, and he will act according to his lead and signals completely. Finally, it is the match day between Cheetahs and Angels, and it turns out for all 3 games in this series, the Cheetahs win them all without any losses. Hakan thinks that he delivered a clutch 2-run double in the 7th inning that helped them win, and he wonders if only the pitchers had thrown fastballs inside as he signaled them to do during the game. The next day, it is the Angels and Rangers' first game of a 3-game series at the stadium with many fans. The staff members watching from the press box think that despite the Angels' losing streak recently, it seems like there are no empty seats in the entire stadium, and it could be all because of Jin-young and his popularity with the fans. The staff member then tells the reporter that they are lucky enough to get to see these games up close because of him and his connections in the industry, and the reporter says that this is the reason he became a reporter in the first place many years ago when he was younger. The reporter recalls that back when he was a rookie in the field starting out, he followed his seniors to the US after hearing that he could freely visit major league stadiums and watch the games there. The staff member then points out that there are lots of foreign scouts sitting around them watching the game closely and taking notes. The coach says that for Jin-young to make it to the majors and play there, he needs to play for at least 7 more seasons with consistent performance and good numbers. Whether it takes 10 years or more to develop, he is seen as a pitcher who can make it to the major league eventually with his talent. Just then, Jin-young enters the field and walks to the mound, and so does Hakan, who is wearing eyeglasses for the first time in a while to see better. Hakan then tells Jin-young directly that he has to strike out more batters than usual today because of the strategy, so he will lead as aggressively as Jin-young asked him to do earlier before the game. Jin-young then activates his ace effect ability to boost his abilities and make himself pitch better during this game. But Hakan thinks to himself that the Rangers have already given a no-hit, no-run game to Jin-young before this game happened in the past. Hakan then gives a signal for the fastball down the middle of the plate, and then Jin-young throws the ball exactly how Hakan wanted it to go, which gets a strike call from the umpire behind the plate who is watching closely. In the second ball of the at-bat, Jin-young manages to strike out the batter and get him out with 3 strikes. Jin-young then manages to strike out more batters in a row with his impressive pitching, and Hakan approaches him on the mound after the inning. He asks Jin-young if pitching for strikeouts only means an increase in pitch count and uses more energy, so can he throw more innings like this without getting tired. He further says with concern that if his pitch speed drops in the last 2 innings due to exhaustion from throwing so much, he will be vulnerable to the batters and they will hit him. Jin-young then agrees to go on with more strikeouts and keep pitching the same way without changing his approach. The match continues with Jin-young throwing a splitter falling off the plate that fools the batter. With this pitch, he struck out 2 batters in a row and is dominating. Today in this game, Jin-young has thrown 2 types of pitches, fastball and splitter, and at this point in the game, the Rangers should start to feel pressure building. Now after those strikeouts, a batter from Rangers named Adam goes to the mound to bat, and he is a player with a high slugging percentage and high strikeout count in his stats. Jin Yong then throws a high fastball at the top of the zone, which strikes out Adam and gets him out looking at strike 3. Afterward, everyone starts cheering for Jin Yong, calling him a strikeout machine. Some guys in the audience think that Jin Yong has made 15 strikeouts in today's match, and the record for the most strikeouts in a single game in Korean baseball is 17 by Yoo Hyun. They realize that if Jin Yong gets 2 more strikeouts in the 9th inning, then he will tie it, but if he strikes 3 more then he will be the best striker. After that, the Rangers pitcher wonders to himself if he should bunt or something, as he is so embarrassed that he cannot even lift his head up and look at anyone. The Angels batter then manages to hit a shot into the field, but as soon as they try to run towards the base plates and advance, they all get out with quick defensive plays. Now after that inning, it is Jin Yong's turn for pitching and he gets to the mound, thinking to himself that this feeling is amazing and unlike anything else. Jinho says from his experience that this is the feeling of everyone holding their breath with each pitch for the record and watching history. Jinho then thinks back that it was exactly the same back then when he set the record at Yankee Stadium, as it was the day he got 20 strikeouts, which was the most strikeouts in a single game in history at that time. Jin Yong then tells him that he did watch that match live on TV when he was a kid and remembers it clearly, but Jinho says to him that if he had gotten 1 more strikeout, he could have set the first record in Major League history and made history. He then tells Jin Yong seriously not to mess it up at the last moment when he is so close to breaking a new record and making history. Jin Yong thinks to himself that he prepared for this day just as Jinho advised him to do in their conversations. Jin Yong then throws a ball that goes straight towards Hokun's glove with perfect accuracy and movement. The batter gets scared and shaken up and wonders to himself why is Jin Yong throwing such an insane splitter without a sign from the catcher to tell him what pitch to throw. He then thinks to himself that maybe they discussed it in the dugout before the game, so Jin Yong can throw one without a sign from the catcher. Jin Yong then once again throws the ball with confidence, which makes the batter nervous because there is no sign this time either and he does not know what is coming. He then gets another strike called on him, and Hakan realizes that the batter is getting more frustrated and mentally defeated. Jin Yong throws another ball which the batter thinks might be the fastball through the middle of the plate, but he gets struck out and called out by the umpire. Seeing that, Jin Yong thinks to himself that Rangers batters must think that he is throwing without a sign from Hakan, but in reality it is not that they did not exchange signs at all between them. Earlier before the game started, Jin Yong told Hakan the secret signs that blinking eyes quickly twice means a fastball, and tapping the ground twice means a splitter pitch. Another batter then gets to the mound to face Jin Yong, and he also gets a strike ball as well on the first pitch. He also gets frustrated and confused that there are no sign exchanges happening, which is impossible because a pitcher cannot trust the catcher that much to pitch without signals. Jin Yong then manages to strike him out with 3 strikes, and with that strikeout he has tied the record and set a new one for himself. Afterward, another batter enters the mound to bat and asks the previous one if there were signs being exchanged during his at-bat, but he tells him with certainty that there were really no signs exchanged between the pitcher and the catcher at all during the pitches. Jin Yong then manages to strike out the batter with 3 strikes, and with that final strikeout he sets a new record by striking out 3 consecutive batters in the 9th inning to finish the game. At the same time in a different location, Yoo Hyun is watching the match on TV at his home. Hearing the commentator say that the best pitcher in South Korea right now is Jin Yong and praising his performance, but then he gets furious and shuts off his TV because he does not want to hear it anymore. The next day, it is the Hawks and Sharks match and all the Tuesday night games are sold out, which shows Yoo Hyun's ticket power and popularity with fans. The staff member is excited that finally Yoo Hyun and Jin Yong are going to meet and face each other in competition, but the reporter says that they are not rivals at all, and it is just a story created by the media, hoping that the professional baseball's elite Yoo Hyun will defeat Jin Yong and create drama. He further wonders to himself if Yoo Hyun will be a match for Jin Yong, who is now racing towards 100 scoreless innings and dominating everyone. He believes and thinks that the only person who can defeat Jin Yong is Jinho in his prime when he was at his best. When the game begins, Yoo Hyun then heads to the mound to pitch, and everyone starts cheering his name loudly and supporting him. Jin Yong didn't allow a single hit until the 9th inning with 2 outs in his comeback game, and now he is just 1 count away from no-hit game until the end. Yoo Hyun then manages to strike out the final batter, and with that the game ends. After that, the impact of Yoo Hyun's return spreads everywhere and they start talking about how he did a no-hit in his comeback. Some people even wonder why he is pitching so fast and with such intensity, as he was covering from an elbow injury and should be taking it easy. Later that night, Jinho is furious over Yoo Hyun being called the best of the best in South Korea by the media. He then grabs Jin Young by the collar with anger and says that if he were still alive and pitching, he would not have to see such crap articles from these idiots who do not know what they are talking about. Jin Young gets angry as well and tells him to speak normally in front of him and not be so disrespectful to the dead. Jinho quickly calms down and changes the subject awkwardly and asks Jin Young what kind of naughty video he was watching all alone on his phone earlier when he was distracted. Jinho then tells him with insistence to do some research online and find out what Yu-hyun said to him and the reporters after his no-hit game yesterday that is making everyone talk and creating buzz. However, Jin Young shows no interest in looking it up on his phone on purpose because he does not care. Jin Young then asks him with skepticism if he really thinks that a player of Yu-hyun's caliber and reputation would say something like he is going to take revenge on him, who broke his record and embarrassed him. Jin Young further says to Jinho that he does not see a reason to care about Yu-hyun or what he thinks, but Jinho freaks out and says that they both are in a rivalry position with each other, so he should care about what happens. Jin Young then agrees with him and says that he will show Yu-hyun properly what kind of guy he really is and what he is capable of doing. Jin Young then uses the diamond roulette feature and tries to spin it to see what he gets, but asks Jinho if he is going to curse it and make it worse like he usually does. Jinho says that there is no point in doing that because it is just a diamond roulette anyway and cursing will not change anything. The roulette then shows him all the unnecessary things. The next day, all the Angels players talk about Yu-hyun and Jin Young and they think that Jin Young is going to struggle against him and he is the type who gets more fired up when the opponent is stronger. The other players say that if they manage the rotation well and plan things out, they can avoid him and not have to face Yu-hyun directly. Hakan realizes that the whole team is shaken up and nervous because of Yu-hyun and his reputation, but it cannot be helped with the media highlighting the rivalry between Jin Young and Yu-hyun constantly. Just then, at that moment, Jin Young shows up at the team meeting and Hakan notices that Jin Young's expression does not look good and he seems troubled about something. But then Jin Young whispers quietly and asks him if he knows how to exorcise spirits and get rid of ghosts. Hakan tells him with confusion that he does not have any tools for that, nor does he know how to do it at all, so Jin Young just leaves disappointed and starts arguing with Jinho about something else. Later that night, Jin Young spins the diamond roulette again to see what skill he will get this time. And Jinho tells him with excitement that this skill gives him a 15-point stamina bonus to help him last longer. On top of that, a 10% reduction in stamina consumption for 6 innings is also a huge advantage that will help him pitch better. Jin Young does not understand him and what he means by that. Jinho explains to him that if he uses 60 stamina over 6 innings, then he saves 6 points of stamina with the reduction, but if they calculate it together then it means he gains at least 20 stamina points with just this skill alone. Jinho then asks him with curiosity what is the most needed thing for the Angels to win games right now. Jin Young says that given that more than just 1 or 2 Angels victories were blown away because of the bullpen and it's impossible, but it would be nice if they had one more starting pitcher like him. Jinho says that there is nothing impossible in that because if he can pitch after 3 days of rest then the Angels will have the strongest 1-2 punch in Korean professional baseball history. Meanwhile, the director thinks that they have 2 weeks left until the All-Star break and they need to go all out, but the team is finally starting to show their teamwork. He further thinks that he was confused at first over Yunseo showing interest in Jin Young, but now the team has begun to unite around Jin Young. He believes that in the future, they need to manage Jin Young's pitch count more carefully and it will be less of a burden on his shoulder to not overexert himself. Just then, Jin Young enters the director's room to have a conversation with him. Jin Young tells him that starting from the second half of the season, he would like to pitch as a starter after 3 days of rest. Hearing that, the coach freaks out. Later, it's the match between the Sharks and the Angels and at the start, Jin Young manages to strike out the player. The players from the other team started getting nervous and worried because Jin Young had managed to strike out a total of 7 batters up to this point in the game. They think to themselves that 6 complete innings have already passed by now, and if they continue doing the same nonsense for 3 more additional innings without managing to score any runs, they will be completely doomed and will end up losing the entire game. One of the players remembers and thinks back to when he knew it was going to be a home run the exact moment he made solid contact with the ball during the second inning, but the ball could not make it over the outfield fence because of the type of ball it was and the specific way it was hit by him. On top of that, the pitch speed has increased in a ridiculous way and the edge of the ball has become much sharper with a lot more movement on it. This makes him think that Jin Young has a whole lot of experience under his belt and really knows exactly what he is doing out there on the mound. The head coach for the Sharks team tells one of his staff members to immediately put the losing team on standby status in the bullpen area. It's because they are planning to send in their guaranteed victory squad during the third and final game that remains, which means they need to make preparations well ahead of time. Right at that moment, a different person shows up and informs the director that the opposing Angels team has just activated their bullpen into active status. Hearing this, the director becomes extremely angry and he asks about the total number of pitches that the pitcher named Jin Young has thrown up to that point in the game, but the other staff member responds by telling him that Jin Young has already thrown a total of 61 pitches over the course of 6 complete innings. The director realizes that Jin Young is most likely going to continue pitching all the way through until the 9th and final inning. This understanding makes him become even more furious with the other people around him. The Angels team's bottom half of the 6th inning comes to an end without them scoring any runs at all, and Jin Young has thrown a total of 61 pitches up to this point. Everyone in the stadium wonders and questions if he will go for another complete game once again today. Jin Young then throws the baseball directly at the batter, who manages to make contact and hit a shot toward the field, but instead of Jin Young being the one to catch the ball himself, Junhyang catches it cleanly and the batter gets called out as a result. Junhyang then says out loud those famous words that Woo is known for saying about this AliExpress version of Ronaldo that everyone knows about. After that, the match continues and Jin Young manages to successfully get 3 complete outs during the entire inning, so all the fans of the Angels team gather together in the stands to start cheering very loudly for Jin Young. They even try to say his famous Woo celebration with him, but then they notice that Jin Young is not even saying Woo this time like he usually does. Jinho then tells Jin Young that he knows he does not want to come down from the mound, but if he goes down the mound now, he will not have a chance to get back on it today for the rest of the game. He says that passing his mound to another pitcher during a game is really unbearable and difficult because he understands it more than anyone else from his own experience. Jinho then notices that Jin Young is looking at the ground, so he asks him if he is crying or is he laughing like a maniac. Jinho then realizes that Jin Young is deliberately stalling to use it as an interview material later. After that moment, a reporter named Hyunks wonders and questions why his staff member looks so shocked and surprised to see Jin Young doing something, so he asks him directly what is going on. The guy tells him that Jin Young performed icing on his arm, but then all the others around them also start to notice that same thing and wonder why he chose to do icing when he has only thrown a total of 72 pitches in the game. They all then quickly start wondering and discussing what kind of article they are going to write about this unusual situation, but Hyunks tells all of them to go ahead and publish the article right away, as it could be interpreted as anything they want because their main goal is to be the very first ones to publish the story. Hyunks then thinks to himself that he already knew deep down that this day would eventually come at some point, because engaging in such unreasonable and risky actions will eventually lead to a complete disaster in the end. Afterward, the Angels team's bullpen successfully held and protected the remaining scoreless innings without allowing any runs. They won the game with a final score of 7-0, but absolutely nobody in the stadium or watching paid any attention to that victory at all. However, all the baseball fans' attention was focused on the Angels coaching staff, and numerous media outlets focused on articles about Jin Young's condition. During the third game of the midweek 3-game series with the Shark, the Angels director heads out to find out that there are more people than usual waiting for him. He tells them that there wasn't anything special about yesterday's game, so he asks if it is about Jin Young. One of the reporters asks the director directly if Jin Young came down and left the mound after 7 complete innings, so he wants to know if there is any kind of issue with his physical condition right now. Hearing that, the other reporter thinks to himself that it is because of Hyunks and his actions that all the other reporters also end up getting criticized and judged harshly. The director then asks the reporter a question back, saying that if he tells him that Jin Young is completely fine right now, he will actually write an article saying that he is fine and healthy. He then tells the reporter directly that instead of him saying anything at all about the situation, it is much better for all of them to just watch and observe Jin Young's actual game performance in the next match that is scheduled against the Titans team. Hearing that, everyone in the room gets surprised that they are actually going to play against the powerful Titans team and that Jin Young is going to be pitching in the 3-game series against them coming up soon. Finally, the match between Titans and Angels is happening, and it is the last game of the first half of the season for both teams. The reporter's staff asks him if he sees the rumors about Jin Young, which he finds a bit too much, as it is not just criticism but it is almost like public flogging from angry fans. The guy then says that he seems pretty calm as they are Angels protector reporters who support the team, but the reporter says that Angels front office asked them to be silent about the situation. The staff members ask questions why the Angels team does not ask them to write a rebuttal article to defend themselves against the accusations, but the reporter replies back that even without having a rebuttal article written for them, the Angels organization has complete confidence in themselves and their abilities to prove everyone wrong. The confidence to both calm down and stop all the controversies that are happening and enjoy this entire situation at the exact same time without any worries. On the other hand, Jin-young happily tells his friend Jinho that if he pitches in today's game, he will have a full week off starting from tomorrow and can rest completely. Jinho tells him very seriously not to get too carried away with collecting skill points and to always stay focused on the game itself at all times. Jin-young then notices and spots that the Titans pitcher named Sejong is going to be the starting pitcher for them, and he remembers that he was a rookie player who was very quickly promoted and moved up from the second team to the main roster recently. Seeing him, Jin-young thinks that he is scary with glasses, left-handed pitcher, curveballer. The match then continues and Junhyang gets struck out, which makes Jin-young think that he came into the dugout a while ago and now it is already 2 outs in the inning. Jinho says that Sejong has unleashed his potential as a pitcher as it is a heavy fastball with an average speed of close to 150 km per hour with a formidable curve that is surprising batters. On top of that amazing performance, there is the symbolism and the star quality of an ace wearing glasses that makes him look cool. Jinho then tells Jin-young that he is ahead of him with 90 pitches thrown while he still has only 55 pitches so far in the game. It's Jin-young's turn for pitching and the Titans' atmosphere quickly gets bad because they think that Jin-young is just going to perform well after a 3-day break. Titans batter thinks that Jin-young must be in a complicated state of mind because of the scoreless inning goal and he won't give him an easy pitch, since he is the leadoff hitter. Jin-young then throws a ball that goes straight in the catcher's gloves and calls out a strike. Jin-young then throws another ball toward the plate, which makes the batter wonder and question to himself if his fastball was always this incredibly fast before, but then the batter gets called out without being able to do anything about it. Then, another batter enters the field and steps up to the plate and the previous batter tells him to attempt a surprise bunt on the very first pitch that comes his way because Jin-young has absolutely no intention of getting away with allowing that kind of play to happen successfully. Jin-young then throws a baseball directly toward home plate and the batter tries his very best to execute a surprise bunt on it, but just as the ball makes contact and hits against his bat, Junhyang comes closer to the play and catches the ball cleanly for the out, so the batter gets called out immediately without reaching base at all. Next up, another batter named Sunmin arrives at the batter's box and he thinks to himself that it has already been a full month since he got trapped in the second team because of a bonehead play that he made in an important game back then. So, he absolutely has to show something impressive and valuable in this particular at-bat right now to prove his worth to everyone watching. Jin-young then throws the ball which the batter hits, but it gets a foul ball, so he thinks that the first pitch is a straight fastball down the middle, so he wonders if the next one could be a curve, changeup, or splitter pitch. Jin-young once again throws a straight fastball down the middle that catches him completely off guard and surprises him with the speed. The batter thinks that Jin-young is going to throw a splitter now, which he is not afraid of at all because in the past, he was helpless against the splitter that dropped more than expected, but now, it is different because he practiced against it. Jin-young then throws a fastball straight to the middle which gets the batter out, and now Jin-young completes the record of 100 scoreless innings with only 6 pitches. Once again, he sets a new milestone in Korean professional baseball. After that game, Jin-young was awarded a random bonus and a platinum roulette pass as a reward for his performance on the field. Jin-young then decides to use the platinum roulette pass, which gives him a skill known as pitch quality boost to improve his abilities. Seeing that reward, Jinho gets furious and says that this game is trash and the curve, changeup are currently B ranked, so why would they want to make it A rank when it is already good? However, Jin-young asks if there is anything to worry about, as if Choi Sejong's decisive pitch is a curve, then he has to use a slider to counter it effectively in the game. The match then continues with Titans another batter getting struck out and Jin-young watches a new pitcher coming in, thinking he will come in for the 9th inning to close the game. After that, Titans do a pitching change with Sejong being replaced by Dong-hoon. Seeing that, the Titans fans become furious and wonder why they had to take out their pitcher Sejong from the game. They think that the team is going to give up on the entire game already at this point. Dong-hoon then manages to strike out the Angels batters in a row one after another, which makes the fans start cheering for him even loudly with renewed energy and hope. In the bottom of the 9th inning, Jin-young returns to the pitcher's mound once again to finish the game, and the commentator thinks to himself that he couldn't give up a single point throughout the entire game, which means that he must be feeling very resentful and determined towards the batter who is standing there at the plate. The Titans batter thinks to himself very carefully and analytically that Jin-young's slider pitch rate has exceeded a total of 70% since the 7th inning starts, so he just needs to focus all his attention and concentration on preparing for one slider pitch that is coming his way next during this at-bat. Surprisingly, Jin-young throws a beanball directly at him that completely scares the batter who is standing in the batter's box right now, and he completely misses making any contact with the ball as it passes by him very quickly. In the next ball, Jin-young manages to strike out the batter successfully, and he even extends the game into overtime, which surprises everyone in the stadium. The Titans fans are desperately waiting for Jin Young to shout his last Woo celebration, but they are surprised to see that Jin Young is not shouting at all this time. Although the Angels seem to have set the atmosphere with Jin Young's pitching performance, the Titans went all out by deploying all their winning cards and best players, but their lineup failed to score until the 12th inning of the game. After that intense play, both teams continued the stalemate without scoring any runs until the 12th inning, and Jin Young walks slowly to the mound in the 12th inning looking tired. Jin Young then gets the second out in the 12th inning, which completely shocks the Titans fans who are watching, and they wonder out loud that no matter how good Jin Young is as a pitcher, he definitely can't pitch for 12 complete innings all alone by himself. Jin Young then gets ready to pitch once more and thinks to himself that if there were 13 innings in baseball games, he would definitely go back to the mound to pitch again. Jinho tells him very clearly that there is absolutely no tie allowed in the major league, and no matter how many innings it takes, there must be a winner or loser determined in the end. Moreover, Jin Young says back to him that even if he goes to the United States to play, he will definitely pass on pitching for 12 complete innings without getting any run support from his team. He then throws his pitch toward the plate, which gets called a strike by the umpire, and then he continues to deliver more pitches which the batter can't hit at all, so the game finally gets over and ends. Jinho notices that no one is cheering anymore and tells Jin Young that in a game where there are no winners or losers, they should take care of their own wounds first instead of cheering. He tells Jin Young that even if there is no glory today for him, his experience will be a valuable asset for him in the future when he plays more games. The system informs Jin Young that he broke a new record for achieving the most strikeouts in a single game, with 19 strikeouts in total during the entire match today. After seeing that, the reporter says that Jin Young takes responsibility for the entire 12 innings alone by himself without any help from others, but the Titans pull out all their winning cards and best players during the game. This means it is basically a 1-against-15 fight between Jin Young and the entire opposing team. The reporter further says and adds that Yoo Hyun must prove himself and show everyone whether he actually has the qualifications and skills to be called Jin Young's rival or not in the upcoming games that are going to happen soon. The next day, the director reads through the articles in which people wonder and question if it was really okay to allow him to pitch that entire match, and they even think that pitching for 12 complete innings could be very tough on the body and cause injuries. The director knew deep down that it would turn out exactly like this with criticism, but the criticism is quite harsh and severe to read through. He thinks that he allowed Jin Young to pitch in the game because he wanted to pitch and his body was completely fine at the time, but he thinks they should probably pay more attention to medical checks in the future. The director then notices one specific article that has a title as Jin Young achieving first place in All-Star fan voting with 2 million votes from fans across the league. Meanwhile, Jin Young tells Jinho excitedly that he is going to get 3 million won in salary and first place in the All-Star voting results, but Jinho tells him not to fly in the sky too much with excitement, as he is not necessarily going to get all that money and success. After that, Jinho asks him what he is going to do with the skill that he got from the roulette. Jin Young tells him that they are going to make use of it somehow, but Jinho says that no matter how amazing a skill is, but if he doesn't know how to use it, it's useless. He explains that the description says it allows him to freely use his left hand, but it doesn't have the same effect. The next day at the All-Star game, all the players from different teams are furious and annoyed that the fans are only gathered on one single line, which is the line for Jin Young's autographs. They wonder if he is going to finish signing all the autographs before the game even starts, and they also question if he was originally ambidextrous so he can sign with both hands. Jinho tells Jin Young to grind through and keep working with the signs and autographs, because without the fans supporting him he is never going to become a successful pro player in this league. Just then at that moment, a beautiful girl approaches Jin Young directly and tells him to sign the jumper and the signboard properly and neatly for her. She even tells him to shout the word woo 3 times out loud for her, but Jin Young tells her back that it is strictly limited to only 1 woo per person according to his rules. Jin Young then looks at that girl more carefully and finds out that she is actually Yunseo standing right in front of him. Jin Young then says that it seems like she is very busy these days, as before, he used to be scolded all the time, but now that she doesn't say anything, he feels lonely. Hearing that, Yunseo starts blushing with a red face and says to him that these days she is very busy with internal matters in the Hyunsung Group company and other important things going on. Jin Young then quickly shouts the word woo out loud for her as a special gesture just for her. After that moment passes, the All-Star game between the Dream Team and Nanam Team begins to start, and the pitcher from the Rangers team wears his clothes and face makeup like he is from some kind of Special Forces military unit. The pitcher then shouts the word woo, exactly like how Jin Young does during his own games when he strikes out batters, and then everyone in the stadium starts making fun of him and laughing at his attempt, and they are saying out loud who this new woo guy is trying to be with his imitation. At the same time, Jin Young also gets to the mound for his pitching appearance in the game, and everyone in the crowd notices right away that his entrance is very quiet and completely different from what they are used to seeing, because there is no woo being shouted at all like usual when he walks out to pitch. The crowd also notices very clearly that Jin Young put the glove on his right hand instead, so they wonder and question if he is actually going to throw with his left hand during this game. The Rangers fan thinks to herself that it must be just for a show and entertainment, as he is not really going to throw with his left hand seriously, but the other person tells her directly that he actually can throw with it, but Young-hoon, who is at the plate, must be feeling really terrible and uncomfortable right now. Young-hoon, who is the batter standing there, thinks to himself that even in an all-star game that is meant for fun, there should be a limit to making jokes like this one. Jin Young then throws the ball with his full power and strength that reaches 121 km per hour in speed and completely shocks the batter standing there. Earlier in time, when Jinho asks Jin Young directly if he has actually used his left hand for pitching before, but Jin Young replies back to him that he has already practiced with his left hand in training, so he tells him to go out there and try it during the game. Outside on the field, Jin Young approaches his teammate Woo Hyung and asks him politely if he can throw a batting practice ball for him to hit right now. However, Woo Hyung gets very surprised to see that Jin Young is actually wearing his left-handed glove on his hand instead of the right-handed one that he normally uses. Woo Hyung wonders to himself that Jin Young is so unpredictable as a person that he has absolutely no idea what he is up to or planning next. He thinks to himself that he might just be joking around, and he definitely can't throw properly with his left hand at all. Jin Young then activates his special skill and throws the ball straight toward the plate, which Woo Hyung couldn't hit even once with his bat. Back in the present, the stadium is so quiet, and Jinho thinks that even if he lived to see this scene, he would not have had anything to say either about it. Jin Young then manages to strike out another batter with ease that shocks the other team's players, who cannot believe what they are seeing. One of them asks the other what is happening with the splitter and if he is not going to throw with his left hand in the second half of the game. On the other hand, the batter thinks that this is absurd because they have doubled the training because of Jin Young, gone through analysis with sweating effort, and now he is throwing with his left hand instead of his right hand. The match then continues forward with Jin Young throwing another ball toward the plate, but the batter hits it solidly and the ball goes all the way to the outfield fence at high speed. The batter then runs straight towards the second base as fast as he can, but he gets called out quickly as Jin Young stopped the inning with 2 runs being allowed to score. Jinho then starts laughing out loud and tells Jin Young not to worry about it too much, as in the All-Star game specifically, a run doesn't have any effect on anything important at all. Jinho then gets super excited about something, but then he sees clearly that the system rewarded Jin Young with a diamond-level roulette prize for allowing the first run in a professional game for the very first time. Jinho then tells Jin Young that all the batters are terrified and they don't want to meet him in person, but Jin Young just shouts his usual woo. Jinho then asks him about the feeling of getting a strikeout with his left hand for the first time in a real game. Jin Young happily tells him that it's absolutely fantastic, and among all the skills he has gained so far, this is amazing. Just then, the system notifies Jin Young directly that he has obtained a rank up along with his velocity increase and increase in other various different things as well. Jinho then starts crying with emotion, saying out loud how it is possible for the velocity to increase like this all at once in one moment, but then Jin Young's velocity increases by 4 km per hour, and so does another skill of his increase too. Seeing all of that, Jinho asks Jin Young if this is some kind of major league comic book or fictional story, but Jin Young is so desperate and determined to show Yoo Hyun exactly who he really is as a talented player. Meanwhile, in a different country far away, some people are practicing baseball on a field, but one of them is lying flat on the ground due to complete exhaustion from training, and he reads through the articles about Jin Young on his device. Just then at that moment, another guy arrives at the field and calls him over by using the name Mike, saying to him that he brought something very interesting to show him. He asks Mike directly if he can remember that kid from before, the one who always chants woo all the time during his games on the field. He asks him if he has seen the news about him yet, as it has gone completely crazy all around the world right now with everyone talking about it. He further says that in the All-Star game, he threw with his left hand and allowed a run, which was really surprising to everyone watching. He then says that right now their team scouts, including scouts from 14 major league teams, have gone to Korea, so that they can go meet Jin Young and see his abilities in person. Meanwhile, at Yoonseo's house, his father says that he heard that she rejected the proposal from the youngest son of the Myoan group. He then says that he has no intention of stopping her from baseball, but now, she should think about her age. He then asks her directly if she has another man in mind or thinking about it, but Yoonseo says that it's not like that at all, as she is way too busy with the headquarters work and the Angels team management. Yoonseo then starts blushing with a red face and wonders to herself why she thought of Jin-young just now in this moment, but she thinks that after the All-Star break is over, the first game of the second half is against the Hawks team with Yoo-hyun playing, so she wonders if she should go meet Jin-young in person. The next day after that, Jun-young tells Yoonseo the news that Jin-young requested permission to go out alone with a girl for a date, and then she starts burning with complete jealousy inside. She wonders to herself how Yoonseo came to him in person like that and he dared to go out with a young and pretty girl instead of her. Yoonseo then calls someone on her phone and tells him that she needs to find a VIP from the Hyunsung Group company, so he should send an official notice to all departments in the Hyunsung Group right away. Meanwhile, at the same time, Jin-young is on a date with a girl at a shopping area and he starts feeling chills all over his entire body for some reason. He then tells her that they should get going and leave this place, but if she needs anything else from the stores, he will buy it for her without any problem. At the same time, in the background, Yoonseo along with her bodyguards are keeping a close eye on Jin-young from a distance, and she wonders to herself who that girl is with him. She thinks to herself that the girl is not only young in age, but she is even prettier than she expected her to be standing there. Jin-young and the girl then spend the entire day together, going to different arcades in the area, playing games together, and eating street foods from various vendors. Later that afternoon, the girl thanked Jin-young for everything he had done and says how she was really worried when he suddenly started playing baseball professionally, but thanks to him doing well, their dad regained his energy completely and felt better. Jin-young then places his hand gently on the girl's head and tells her to study hard for university entrance exams coming up. Seeing that action happen, Yoonseo gets even more furious and angry inside, and she finally shouts at him very loudly, asking what exactly he is doing with this girl right now. She further says to him that she has been following him around all day long, and if he is an Angels player, he should maintain his dignity and reputation in broad daylight in public. Jin-young then tells her the truth that the girl is actually his younger sister, and then Yoonseo completely loses her mind with embarrassment, and she then introduces herself properly to his sister. Later that night, after everything, Jin-young's sister leaves to go home, and Jin-young asks Yoonseo directly if she has been following him all day today because she suspects him of something wrong. He then asks her if it is that she is worried that he might meet with officials from his hometown team and get kicked out of the Angels team because of it. However, Yoonseo says that it's not the case at all and hits him on the arm hard, saying he should win against Yoo-hyun in the upcoming game or else he will be kicked out of the team for sure without question. Jin-young then says to her seriously that she is the one who gave him the chance to return to the mound after he fled from baseball completely in the past. So, because of that, he will definitely put the Angels team on top of the league and he will stand on the mound for her, for the Angels organization and all the fans who support them. Jin-young then bows down respectfully in front of her and says that there is an individual training session in the morning, so he will leave first and head home, but Yoonseo remains completely quiet as she believes in him and his abilities. On the day of the showdown between Jin-young and Yoo-hyun, the Angels player thinks to himself that the articles are completely absurd as it looks like Jin-young killed someone with the way they describe the situation in writing. The other guy tells him back that Yoo-hyun came back to reclaim the ace position of the team that robbed empty houses before, which is a bit too much of an exaggeration. Jun-young then goes to the mound as a batter to practice, and everyone thinks that he is completely fired up on the verge of wanting to kill Yoo-hyun in the game. Just then at that moment, Ha-kan arrives at the field and tells all the guys that Jin-young will not pay attention to the articles at all, so instead of wasting their time on reading this stuff, they should review the scouting report on Yoo-hyun one more time carefully. Jin-young then calls over Ha-kan to come closer and says to him that they should check the analysis data one more time before the game starts today, as the proportion of rookie players in the Hawks lineup has suddenly increased from before. At the same time, the starting pitcher named Yoo-hyun manages to strike out a bunch of players in quick succession during his warm-up. Everyone in the stadium then starts cheering for him very loudly, and they are all saying that he is a real monster of Korean baseball right now at this moment. Yoo-hyun thinks to himself quietly that the idea of two of the best pitchers representing Korean baseball is a complete lie and not true at all, because that is a story from when Jin-young is not in Korea playing baseball, but now that he is back home in his own country, there is absolutely no rival for him in Korea at all anymore. After seeing that, Jinho asks Jin-young if he looks scared all of a sudden right now because of the situation, but Jin-young responds by saying that it is not that at all and he is not scared. Instead, it is just strange and unusual for him to hear another pitcher's name echoing loudly throughout the entire stadium like this instead of his own name. Jin-young then tells him that he will keep getting ignored if he achieves sloppy victories like this, so now he should go and tear apart Yoo-hyun. Ha-kan then wonders to himself that Jin-young is probably trying to relieve Yoo-hyun's burden and pressure by quickly scoring points for the team early. He thinks to himself that if it's a straight pitch coming, the bat will come out right away from the batter, and in that case, Jin Young should attack him without any hesitation at all. Jin Young then manages to strike out 3 batters of the other team in a row, one after another, without allowing anything. The commentator thinks out loud that Jin Young's splitter pitch against Yu Hyun's slider pitch seems much sharper today than it has been before. Yu Hyun then tells his senior teammate to give him a hit next at-bat when he comes up to the plate to support him. Now finally at last, the Angels team is finally back at the bat for their turn, and in the 4th inning of the game, Junhyung is going up for the batter position at home plate to face Yu Hyun. Yu Hyun then throws his pitch directly at Junhyung, but he hits it solidly and the ball goes straight up to the sky high, but the Hawks player easily catches the ball for an out. After that moment, the match continues moving forward and Yu Hyun manages to strike out a bunch of other players that come on his way to the plate. Now finally at this moment, it's Jin Young's turn to bat, and Yu Hyun notices right away that he is wearing gloves on his right hand instead of his left hand like normal. He further gets completely shocked and surprised to see that Jin Young is actually going to pitch left-handed in a real game situation, and moreover, during a game against someone like him who is so skilled and talented. Jin Young tells Jinho directly that no one expected to see this happening so soon in a real game at this level, but it can't be helped at all because to defeat a left-handed fireballer pitcher like Yu Hyun, there is nothing better than using a left-handed fireballer pitcher to match him equally. After that, everyone freaks out and panics that Jin Young is wearing the gloves in his right hand, which means that he will be pitching with his left hand during this game. The other team's batter never thought that he could really pitch with his left hand in a real game situation, and it's a bit surprising to him, but he thinks to himself that Jin Young's control and speed are surely not as good with his left hand as his right hand. He believes strongly that if it were his right hand pitching, Jin Young could have struck him out easily, but with his left hand he can definitely hit the shot coming his way. On the other hand, Jin Young asks Jinho if he is not going to ask questions this time like he always does whenever something unusual happens. Jinho says back to him that asking questions will only make his mouth hurt from talking way too much, but Jin Young starts laughing out loud at that response he just heard. Jin Young then activates his special ability and throws a fastball pitch using his left hand toward the plate with full force behind it. The ball turns out to be a 145 km/h speed shot, which not only surprises the batter who is standing there at the plate but also Yu Hyun who is watching from the dugout area. Meanwhile, all the players talk among themselves about how in the last All-Star game that happened, the highest speed was clearly in the low 120s range only. Yu Hyun thinks to himself that this is completely ridiculous as it's not a game situation and there is absolutely no way the speed could increase this high in such a short time. Jin Young says to himself that Jinho was right after all, as he told him to develop fine control with his right hand and become a fireballer pitcher who squeezes all the power out with his left hand instead. Jinho then asks out loud what kind of psycho could throw at the same speed with both hands, as it's they are either completely insane or a genius player. After that moment, Jin Young throws 3 balls to the next batter who just misses them all with his swings at the plate. The batter thinks to himself that Jin Young is squeezing the speed to the limit as his control is shaky and not very accurate right now. Because of that, he thinks that there is no need to give him a quick game when he doesn't have good ball control and is struggling with accuracy. However, Jin Young throws a beanball that surprises the batter standing at the plate and he gets called out on a strikeout immediately. Afterward, the match continues moving forward with Jin Young recording 18 strikeouts total and his speed hasn't dropped at all throughout the game. In contrast to that performance, Yu Hyun is closely following behind with 15 strikeouts, and they are showing a truly memorable game that will go down in the 40-year history of professional baseball in Korea. Yu Hyun didn't expect Jin Young to pull out his left hand so quickly in a real game situation like this, and thanks to that surprise move, he is falling behind in the number of strikeouts compared to Jin Young right now. After that play, Woo Hyung from the Angels team goes to bat and steps into the batter's box, and Yu Hyun thinks to himself that he is the league's best mid-range hitter who has a powerful long hit ability, but he thinks that he definitely can't send the ball to the outfield area. Yu Hyun then throws the ball toward home plate but gets really surprised to see that Woo Hyung actually executes a bunt in a perfect way and even safely reaches the second base without getting thrown out by anyone. Seeing that successful play happen right in front of them, the commentators start crying with strong emotion and say that this is the very first leadoff hitter on base for both teams today in this entire game that has been going on. Now after that play is finished, Junhyun gets ready to enter the mound as a batter and prepares himself to face Yu Hyun once again for another at-bat against him in this game. Junhyun then gets ready at the mound to bat, but Yu Hyun thinks to himself that he is a genius hitter who has been placed at number 4 since his debut season in the league. Yu Hyun then throws the pitch toward the plate, thinking to himself that he will make sure he never steps on first base at all today. The ball gets called a strike because Junhyang doesn't hit it with his swing and the speed of the pitch is 156 km per hour, which means he throws the fastest ball of the entire day so far. Yoo-hyun then throws another strike ball that really annoys him and frustrates him, but the Angels crowd start cheering loudly for Junhyang to just hit the ball and make a home run like he always does in important situations. They wonder out loud why he is standing there blankly like that, as he should have hit it with confidence and power already. Jinho then asks Jin-young directly if he froze because he's afraid of the ball speed or the pressure from the opponent standing there. Jin-young says that he has serious doubts about it because the batter is probably aiming and waiting for Yoo-hyun's winning shot pitch, which is the swiper that everyone already knows about and recognizes. Yoo-hyun then makes the decision to throw his winning shot, which happens to be the best swiper pitch that he has in his arsenal, and the ball goes straight towards Junhyang, who is standing at the plate waiting for it. Junhyang then manages to hit a really crazy shot with absolutely perfect timing that catches everyone by surprise. The ball goes straight towards the scoreboard that is located in the outfield area, and it ends up counting as a home run for the entire team. Seeing that incredible hit happen right in front of them, everyone starts cheering really loudly for Junhyang because he is able to break the Hawks' wings completely by hitting against the great Yoo-hyun himself in a successful way. Yoo-hyun thinks to himself that he was just way too focused on Jin-young screaming on the mound that he did not even realize that there was another monster playing on the Angels team with them. After that moment passes by, the top of the 9th inning arrives with 2 outs already recorded, and it is the last regular inning attack for the Angels team to try and score some runs. Yoo-hyun once again shows everyone that he was the true legend of Korea by striking out another player of the Angels team with his amazing skills and abilities. Due to his extremely dazzling pitching performance that matches Jin-young's record for the most strikeouts in a single game in a perfect way. After that happens, Jin-young enters the field to pitch and Jinho tells him that it's nice to get points, but Yoo-hyun has already caught up to his record now. Jinho then starts making fun of Jin-young in a teasing way, saying his record can't even last a full month before being broken. However, Jin-young tells him that he is not going to give up without a fight because he needs to set a brand new record and get a roulette ticket for himself. He goes on to say that if he strikes out every single one of the hitters who are still remaining in the game, the total will reach 21 strikeouts, which means that he is going to break the record that Jinho holds right now. Jin-young then manages to strike out a whole bunch of hitters one after another in a row, and he manages to go past his very own record by getting 20 strikeouts during today's game. Now, the chance arrives for him to break a brand new world record by beating Jinho's achievement with just one more single strike. Jin-young then throws a straight fastball that strikes out the batter standing at the plate, and with that final pitch being thrown, the game comes to an end for everyone. Jin-young manages to go past his very own personal record while also breaking the previous record that Jinho set before him in the past during his career. On the other hand, Jinho is completely shocked and amazed that Jin-young's pitching speed actually reaches 147 km per hour during the game, but then the system sends a notification message to Jin-young that he has set a brand new record for achieving the most strikeouts in a single game in history. So for that amazing achievement and accomplishment, he receives a diamond roulette ticket as a special reward for his performance. Meanwhile, all the reporters who are watching and covering the game are surprised as well about this incredible feat, and they start thinking that there is no pitcher in Korea right now who can actually be called Jin-young's rival anymore at this level. Later that night, Jin-young uses the diamond roulette reward while Jinho doesn't really want to see him playing the diamond roulette at all. He tells Jin-young that he is not interested in watching this happening because it only hurts his stomach to see the rewards. Jin-young then gets a ball master ability reward that Jinho perfectly guessed would happen, but he freaks out completely and wonders why the next roulette is appearing there already. Just then at that moment, Jin-young receives 2 diamond roulette rewards, as one for 19 strikeouts and another for 20 strikeouts in the game. Jin-young then gets a fireballer ability reward just like Jinho guessed once again with perfect accuracy. Jin-young then asks him what the next one is going to be, but Jinho doesn't say anything back to him and tells him to just pull it out and see. Jin-young then pulls the roulette spin and gets a divine protection skill reward, and both of them think to themselves that this is the kind of skill that will be useful someday in the future. The next day, it's the second match between the Hawks team and Angels team scheduled to play. Yoo-hyun manages to throw the ball right at a batter's priceless treasures between his legs, and then his eggs break from the impact painfully. Seeing that painful moment happen, Jinho tells Jin-young that it gives him chills after watching something intense like this happen on the field. Jin-young asks him what he is talking about exactly, but he tells him to just watch the match and pay attention. In the second match of the series, the Angels team loses with one batter injured from the play, but in the last game of the 3-game series against the Hawks team, the Angels team once again loses the game. Soon, Angels have their next match against Dogs and Jin-young manages to strike out their batters. This saves the Angels' losing streak with a complete game victory. Jin-young thinks that losing streak in today's game, there is something off after Benjamin's injury. He thinks that there is something strange about the play as it feels overly passive. The next day, it starts raining outside and Jin-young thinks to himself that if this continues for much longer, the starting rotation will be delayed again for everyone. Just then, they notice that Junhyung is standing there looking extremely mad about something that happened. So, Jinho tells Jin-young to look over there at him, but Jin-young tells him to go and praise Junhyung instead of just watching. However, Jin-young then notices a weird kind of energy coming from the players around them, and he realizes that this might be the exact thing that Jinho mentioned to him before. Later that night, Jin-young tells Jinho that it is already too late now and Junhyung is not coming in anymore. But Jinho says back that his batting has been weak these past few days and he is really sure he has been stressed as much as he desired for victory. Jin-young tells him that he is also frustrated because what he wants is not just a simple win but a victory for the Angels. Furthermore, Jin-young says that in yesterday's game, there was something off about the players' atmosphere and even in situations where they could have moved one step more than usual, situations where they could have done a little more, there seemed to be a somewhat passive movement. Jinho says that is the ominous energy that comes as fear to the players on the team. He explains that the fear of injury has spread to the entire team around them. Since Benjamin's injury happened, the players' play has been strange and unusual. So, players thought this exact thing when looking at Benjamin lying there, that what if they end up missing the entire season due to injury as well. He further says that winning mentality is really crucial for the players to have, but the Angels were in a different situation to create that kind of mindset. Jin-young says that if it continues like this for much longer, then winning the championship is completely impossible for them, but Jinho replies back that there is a way to fix it. He explains that all he has to do is install a winning mentality in the brain of every player. Jinho then tells him to go and inspire his teammates, but Jin-young asks if he could just send messages to them. Hearing that, Jinho tells him that he is a professional baseball player, so he should act according to it. Jin-young then quickly shouts woo as usual and Junhyung, who is just about to enter the room, wonders why he is shouting alone. 3 days later, it is a match between the Angels and the Ravens teams. The Angels players think to themselves that if they lose today's game, then it will be another losing streak for them to deal with. Seeing the match unfold in front of him, the director thinks that their pitcher did allow timely hits to happen, but Sung-hyun is also holding up well enough out there. He thinks to himself that the problem is that the timing of the opposing hitters has started to match up now. The director then tells someone nearby to bring Song Jae-yoon and tell him to get ready since he is warming up in the bullpen area right now. Just then, someone comes and informs the director that Song Jae-yoon has injured his shoulder badly. Hearing that, the director thinks that there are no more pitchers left, but then Jin-young shows up. The match continues and the Ravens are shocked to see that Jin-young is warming up. They are scared that he might be coming in the next inning. The inning is over and Jin-young finally heads to the field. Everyone notices that Jin-young's gloves are left-handed from the very beginning today. Suddenly, the system informs Jin-young that with Divine Protection skill being active, the curveball's pitch rank rises up to a rank level. Jin-young then thinks to himself that he has to thank Junhyung because the play a while ago changed the look in the player's eyes completely. He further thinks to himself that after the match with Yoo-hyun ended, the maximum velocity of his fireballer now reached 140 km per hour, but with Divine Protection activated, it is 143. He then throws the fastball toward the plate that shocks everyone watching because the speed of the pitch is nearly 150 km per hour. Jinho wonders to himself that the most important virtue that a finisher should have is an intense image that robs the hitter's confidence away from them. He then adds to his thoughts that to show that kind of image, all someone needs to do is to throw it hard because there is nowhere for the finisher pitcher to run away to. Moreover, everyone's mood quickly changes after seeing that Jin-young is actually striking out players continuously in a row without stopping. They think to themselves that it would be strange if they could not win when a monster like him is on their side playing, and with him here, the Korean series might not be a dream either for them. In midsummer during the season, the teams that advance to the postseason become much clearer and the Angels team succeeds in turning the atmosphere around. With Jin-young's incredible performances, alternating between starter position and finisher position throughout games. He takes complete responsibility for the team's victory in many games, reclaiming first place in the standings, and they head towards the fall baseball season together. The team can now smell the victory trophy getting closer, displaying determination, firmly securing first place in the league and winning the first regular season championship after several decades of trying. The Angels team goes straight to the Korean Series Championship, and in the Angels' long history with the emergence of the most tenacious power hitter and the absolute ace pitcher, absolutely no one doubted the Angels' regular season victory at all. On the other hand, the Devils, the destined rivals who finished second in the season, defeated the Sharks in the playoff series and secured the last ticket to the Korean series with 3 wins. Jin-young then tells Jinho that they somehow managed to get into the Korean Series Championship, but Jinho is actually furious and upset over Jin-young getting that system window with massive skill sets and abilities. Just then at that moment, Yoon-seo also shows up at the field and tells him that the weather is chilly and cold because it's autumn season already outside. Yoon-seo then bows down in front of him very respectfully and says that he has worked really hard during the entire regular season, and thanks to him and his amazing performance, the Hyunsung Group Company, the chairman and her have gained a lot of strength and confidence in the team. Jin-young says back to her that as a professional player it's his duty to perform well on the field, but Yoon-seo still thanks him properly and sincerely and says that she came here today and called him directly because she wanted to congratulate him in person face to face. She then extends her hand forward to congratulate him properly, but Jin-young doesn't extend his hand back. He says that the thing they talked about last time needs to be addressed, so she says that she came to talk about that topic too, as she believes he will definitely win with 3 victories in the series. Yoon-seo reminds him clearly that there is absolutely no limit on asking what he wants from her, so Jin-young, being a geek about baseball, says that he will spend every single moment thinking about baseball until they get a unified victory in the championship. The day before the Korean series begins, Jin-young couldn't sleep at night at all, so Jinho asks him about it and why he's awake. Jin-young asks him back why he is not sleeping and going around scaring people in the middle of the night, so Jinho says that he never sleeps at all, and no matter how hard he tries to sleep, he just can't do it. Jin-young then realizes suddenly that he didn't sleep once since they met and stayed awake alone all the time, but he asks what he does alone every single dawn when everyone else is sleeping. Jinho replies back to him that he is just watching the Major League video he set up for him and worrying all night long about everything. However, Jin-young asks him directly what he is worrying about, so much so Jinho tells him that he's wondering whether he is truly the vessel who will really bring him the World Series championship ring and free him from this situation. He then says that his worried thoughts are all about him and his future, after his entry into the Majors League happens. Jinho knows deep down that he worked really hard with a weak body without a single muscle on him, and just stepping on the pitcher's mound in the Korean series itself is something remarkable and impressive already for someone like him. Jinho then puts his hand over Jin-young's head gently and says that if he is stressed about the Korean series so much that he can't even sleep at night, he will take back all the worries he had so far, so he can go back to sleep peacefully. Jin-young then starts crying with tears and tells Jinho that he will do absolutely anything to bring him the Korean Series championship ring no matter what it takes. Jinho starts laughing out loud that he is actually saying all that emotional stuff to him right now at this moment. The next day, it's the Korean Series match and Jin-young sees a guy on the field, telling Jin-young that he is the Devils' starter pitcher today for this game. Jin-young says back to him that since he is also the starter for his team, he will play the card that he has been holding on to for a long time now. Jinho replies to him that as a baseball rookie player, he doesn't think it would be easy at all because even if it's the 4th starter position, it's still the Korean Series championship game. Jin-young then asks him directly who he thinks will win the Korean Series championship, and he tells him to pick the winning team between the Devils and the Angels, but if he gets it wrong with his prediction, he will just speak informally to him from now on instead of formally. Hearing that question, Jinho gets furious and says that the Angels are definitely going to win the championship, but Jin-young says back to him that he already knew it from the start. His perspective as the god of baseball never fails him. Soon after that, the Angels and the Devils fans get into an argument and debate, and everyone is going crazy over this match coming up. On the other hand, at the same time, Jin-young's father is trying to buy the tickets even if the price is 10 times higher than normal, but Jin-young's little sister tells him that Jin-young already gave her separate tickets for the family. Finally, at last, the Korean series between the Angels and Devils begins with lots of fans waiting outside the stadium and all the seats already booked and sold out completely. Jin-young then heads towards the mound on the field, thinking to himself that the enthusiasm from the crowd is tremendous and overwhelming. Jinho then asks him how he feels about standing on the Korean series mound for the first time, but Jin-young says that it feels exactly like the Korean series should feel. Jinho then gets furious because he is not answering properly and respectfully to an adult like him. Jin-young then gets several abilities increase notifications like point acquisition rate increase and Korean series bonus being activated for this game. The referee then gives a call out for the match to begin officially, and with that signal being given, Jin-young throws his first ball toward the plate that the batter manages to hit with his bat successfully. The ball goes towards Jun-hyung, who quickly throws it towards the mound, which gets the batter out immediately. Jin-young then erases the 6th inning with only 8 pitches thrown and shouts his famous Woo sound loudly. Now, it is the Angels' turn for batting and Woo-hyung is the first to go up there. He manages to hit a shot and quickly reaches second base safely. On the other hand, Junhyung is intentionally walking by the Devils' dugout to scare them even more than before with his presence. Hakan then gets to the mound to bat, but the commentators think that he is a bit slow and did not show a good hitting sense in the second half of the season. The pitcher from the Devils is none other than Kyung-hoon, who thinks to himself that Hakan occasionally has a powerful hit at crucial moments. His hitting sense dropped in the second half. He thinks that his sense will be dull as it has been a while since he played in a real game situation. Kyung-hoon then throws the first pitch, which makes Hakan think that it's a showdown on the first pitch, so he will have to hit it to give Jinyoung strength. Hakan then manages to hit a shot and then he easily gets 3 runs, breaking the balance to 0. Everyone thinks that Hakan immediately proves that the Devils' dugout made the wrong choice and how amazing he is. The Angels players start laughing after looking at the faces of the Devils because of the 3-run hit by Hakan. The match then continues with an Angels player getting a strikeout, but the fans think that they do not care about this at all because Jinyoung is waiting behind them and he is going to take them towards the victory they want. However, another guy tells the other to look at the mound because Jinyoung is not on the field but Woo-dol is there instead. It turns out that Jinyoung has been replaced by Woo-dol on the field. Everyone gets shocked to see that happening and wonders if there is an injury this time around, but then they get surprised to see that Jinyoung is standing in the bullpen area wearing something on his arm. After that moment, the reporter thinks to himself that it's a complete victory with the addition of Jinyoung and Junhyung, and the Angels have assembled the best lineup in their entire history as a team. The reporter wonders to himself why Jinyoung came down from the mound so quickly today, but he then reassures himself that even if he comes out again, it will just be from the bullpen like he usually does. He even thinks that the MVP of the match is definitely Jinyoung because he has been pitching for 6 complete innings, allowed only 4 hits total and recorded 12 strikeouts impressively. The reporter then asks his staff member how many viewers are watching right now, so he says back that there are currently 950,000 simultaneous viewers and the TV ratings are 16.7% high. After that game ends, Jinyoung gives an interview to the reporter who congratulates him on his pitching, which is still dazzling even in the fall season right now. She says that he only pitched 6 innings today and came down from the mound, so does anything hurt or bother him? Jinyoung says that his physical condition is not very good right now, which makes the reporter freak out and panic immediately. Jinyoung then says to her that just until yesterday, his fever went up to 39 degrees Celsius and he couldn't even sleep properly because of it being so high. Jinyoung then tells her with a smile that he was just joking around as his health is really good right now, and he will also be the starter tomorrow in the next game. Later that day after the interview, everyone gets angry to see that Jinyoung is even on a manga panel while being the main protagonist character in the story. The next day after that, it's the second game and everyone wonders out loud if there won't be any weaknesses at all if Jinyoung pitches in 2 consecutive games back-to-back. However, the Devils coach says back that it means they are going to face both left-handed and right-handed versions of Jinyoung in this series. The Devils director thought to himself that Jinyoung would save himself for the 1st, 3rd, and 6th games, and put everything on the line for the 2nd, 4th, and 7th games, but it doesn't look like he even plans to go to the 7th game at all. After that moment passes, Jinyoung gets back to the mound once again and everyone starts cheering for him loudly as they can't believe that he is on the mound for the 2nd game in a row. Jinho tells Jinyoung seriously that today's game rating will exceed 20%, which means that a day like this won't come easily again, so he should give people a gift that will stay in their minds forever as a memory. He even tells Jinyoung jokingly to take off his pants and show his Burj Khalifa to the entire stadium, which will be marked in history forever as something unforgettable. Jinho then asks him about today's pitching strategy, but Jinyoung says that he is going to pitch like Jinho. He then manages to strike out the batters of the opposite team in a row like usual. After that, it's Angels' turn for batting and the Devils pitcher also strikes out batters in a row. He thinks to himself that his nickname Big Boy suits him very well because his strength in big matches is undoubtedly top-notch and impressive. However, the Angels director realizes that Jinyoung is getting his attention focused and he is a very good pitcher, but he may not feel like it, but he is fully aware that he should be targeting the hitter at the plate, not the pitcher on the mound. At the bottom of the 6th inning, with 2 outs already recorded, Angels pitcher Gonzalez is heading to the bullpen area to warm up. The director wonders to himself that now that Justin has seen Gonzalez heading to the bullpen area, he can't help but continue to be aware of the possibility of Jinyoung's strong pitching coming into the game soon. Afterward, the match continues forward with Justin throwing the ball, thinking to himself if he survives this inning, then Woohyung will go down and get out. He further thinks to himself that Jinyoung's pitch count is already around 80 pitches, as he has been throwing close to 150 pitches since yesterday's game. Woo Hyun then gets struck out, which makes Justin even more fired up and energized with confidence. He thinks to himself that since he held out this far in the game, they are going to get some runs from Andy in the next inning. After that happens, it's Jin Young's turn for pitching once again, and he manages to strike out a bunch of players from the Devils team that makes Justin completely shocked and surprised by his continued dominance. Now finally, it's the Devils' turn for defense on the field, and Justin is feeling down and discouraged because of Jin Young's incredible pitching performance. Everyone in the crowd tries their very best to cheer for Justin loudly, but he wonders to himself if Jin Young is going to pitch until the 9th inning today without stopping. He then gets on the mound to pitch and thinks to himself that his shoulders feel heavy with pressure, and ever since giving up 3 consecutive home runs in the United States, today is the day he least wants to pitch in his career. He then throws the ball, but Angel's batter manages to hit a home run. Seeing that, Jin Young thinks that it all collapsed according to manager Bong's plan, but Jinho says that that guy is scary. He then asks Jin Young if his starter for tomorrow is Wonho, the failed free agent, and there is a big chance that they will lose tomorrow and go straight to the 5th game of the series. However, Jin Young tells him that he can go up as a starter once more in the rotation, so Jinho tells him to just kill them all and come back victorious. Jin Young then manages to strike out more players from the opposing team, and with that final out the game gets over and ends. Everyone then tells Jin Young to shout woo loudly to celebrate, but he tells them that they haven't won the championship yet as they only achieved 2 wins so far, so now is the time to focus on the remaining games more seriously and carefully. Jin Young then thanks his teammates for their hard work, and because of them and their support, he can focus completely on his pitching without distractions. Hearing that statement, Jinho starts laughing out loud because he knows that Jin Young has absolutely nothing to focus on, and he is just trying to avoid getting congratulated by those guys around him. The next day after that, the Angels manage to win the 3rd game as well, and in the 3rd game Cha Wonho is named the MVP of the match. Although they ambitiously recruited him to get the winning DNA and mindset, he ended up being a pitiful player who was considered a failed free agent with a shabby record of 4 wins and 8 losses during the season. In the 3rd game, Wonho was like a pitcher who pitched unexpectedly and are called scratched. Facing the heavily stacked Devils lineup, he shut them down with 8 innings, 2 hits, and 11 strikeouts. Wonho not only won the MVP of the 3rd game but also showed his best game on the stage of the Korea series. However, Jin Young couldn't smile, even with the team's victory and the comeback of the senior player. Tomorrow is a match between the Devils' 5th starter and the Angels' 2nd starter, and with the 4th game expected to be the Angels' victory. When the series ends in the 4th game, not only Jin Young lose the opportunity to pitch, but he will not be able to keep his promise with Yunseo because he failed to achieve 3 wins. Jin Young then gets furious and thinks that it's all over for them, but Jinho starts laughing at him and his reaction. He tells Jin Young that the Devils team has completely lost their will to fight, and he thinks it will be easy for them to win the championship. Meanwhile, at the same time, Yunseo asks Andy about tomorrow's starter for the game, so he tells her that his performance in the 2nd half was impressive and strong. She then wonders to herself if there is a way for Jin Young to pitch tomorrow's game even if it's just 1 inning of work. Suddenly out of nowhere, it starts raining heavily outside, and Yunseo tells Andy that they should issue a storm advisory warning for everyone's safety. Jinho also realizes immediately that if it keeps raining heavily and tomorrow's game is cancelled and delayed, then that means Jin Young might be going to pitch in the next game instead. The match then gets delayed by 1 day, and a reporter asks the director if Jin Young will be the starter in the 4th game. The director replies that the entire nation will know when they see tomorrow's lineup announcement, but he tells the reporter that Jin Young's condition is better than ever. Meanwhile, Yunseo is also watching the interview on TV, and the staff tells her that the negative coverage on Jin Young is increasing as fans and officials from the other 9 teams seem to share the same opinion. Yunseo says that this was expected reaction, as if it continues like this, even if the Angels win, it will deal a significant blow to the corporate image. She then asks the staff about how the handling is going, so he tells her that it's being handled well, as he deliberately spread related documents in the reporter's office in the morning. Hearing that, Yunseo gets excited and says that it's been worthwhile enduring because the reporter has been mischievous all this time. Another staff member shows her about an article that came out, as it says that the Angels' shocking hidden contract with Jin Young to be released unconditionally after this season. Meanwhile, a staff member reports to the reporter that an article broke out and it must be Hyunks again. The reporter asks him if there is trouble because of this incident, so the staff member replies that this kind of hidden contract will not be able to avoid an audit from the association, and other teams won't stay quiet either. The reporter tells him that there won't be any problems according to the regulations, as it will be a way to show his gratitude. The staff guy says that the Hyunsung group wouldn't keep silent either, and the one responsible will get to step down. The reporter says that Yunseo, who is the actual person in charge of the team, can resign from her position. However, he then thinks to himself that even if she resigns on the surface level, she will most likely be appointed as a key executive at Hyunsung Group anyway. The staff member asks him if the Angels fans oppose that decision, so he says that they cannot criticize a pitcher who single-handedly led the team to its first championship in over 30 years of playing. Besides that, he thinks to himself that if Jin Young gets released at the end of the season, the other 9 teams will have less hostility towards them. So, if Yunseo wants to do it, she can even meet with the CEO of the sports newspaper, and the reason why she has not made a move yet is because she is waiting for a situation like this to happen. The next day arrives, it is the 4th day for the Korea series, and everyone is so excited that all the places are closed down because of it happening. In the traffic jam on the roads, a family of 3 are also heading out to watch the match together. The kid's father asks him if he is excited about it, but the kid says that he gets bored because the match never ends fast enough for him. The guy then says that today is going to be different from other times because the starter is Jin Young, and it turns out that it is the kid's first time watching Jin Young play. Finally, the 4th match of the Korea series starts, and if the Angels can get just one more win, they are going to achieve a unified victory and complete success. The starting pitcher for this particular match is none other than Jin Young himself, but Jinho approaches him and asks if his condition and physical state are good today. Jinho then informs and tells Jin Young that there are only around 15 people sitting in the audience who actually came from the other opposing teams to watch, so Jin Young says that this must be the final test and check to see how much help and support he can give and provide to the team after he gets released from his contract. Junhyang then makes his way to the batting position, which causes Jinho to think to himself that Junhyang still handles and goes around dealing with things in a very cool and calm manner. Jinho then reminds and tells Jin Young that back in June, he managed to pitch a perfect game against the Devils team right here at this same location. Jin Young answers back and replies that they are going to have to face that same kind of fact-checking and testing all over again. However, Jinho strikes him and explains that a perfect game is actually a record and achievement that can never be accomplished by just a pitcher working alone because it involves and includes the batter's hits and all the defensive plays that happen during the game, but luck and chance also play a significant role in making it happen. In addition to that, with the championship being so close and right around the corner, there is definitely going to be some nervousness building up in everyone. Jinho then tells and reminds him that there is absolutely no possible way for a pitcher to achieve and accomplish a perfect game all by himself without any help. Jinho strikes him one more time and tells him that getting and achieving a perfect game isn't something that just happens simply because someone has a lot of strength and possesses good skills and abilities. He explains and makes it clear that trusting and believing in the fielders who are standing behind him is really important, and he needs to keep his eyes focused only on mitt while crushing and dominating the batters with his strong presence and confident attitude so they don't even think about trying to attack or attempting to hit the ball. After hearing all of this advice, Jin Young walks onto the baseball field and shows an amazing performance that is so good it even gets the attention of a kid who is watching from somewhere in the crowd. Jin Young's pitches are moving at speeds that get really close to around 155 km per hour. With that kind of amazing and incredible pitching performance, the game comes to its end and finishes completely. After seeing all of that happen, the kid finally starts to think and realize that baseball is actually interesting and fun to watch, but what matters even more is that he becomes really interested in Jin Young as a baseball player. Everyone in the stadium then starts celebrating for the Angels' victory, but Jin Young actually succeeds and manages to achieve a perfect game, so he gets and receives a platinum ticket as his reward and prize. After seeing that, Jin Young shouts out his famous Woo sound along with all the people who are sitting and cheering in the audience. Jin Young then notices the same kid sitting somewhere in the audience, and he remembers and thinks back to his own childhood days and experiences, so he decides to pass and throw the baseball to him as a gift. After that, the news spread worldwide that the Angels won the Korea Series championship with 4 consecutive wins in a row. Due to that major achievement, Yunseo resigns from her position and gets appointed as vice chairman of Hyunsung Group instead. Later that night, when everyone is resting, Jin Young's younger sister brings his trophy to their dad's room in the hospital where he is admitted right now. The next day arrives, Jin Young is sent back to the military for his enlistment training to continue, but Jinho says that after staying at the Angels' dorm and hotel for so long, then coming here to this place, he really lived a hard life. Jin Young jokes around that he even encountered a virgin ghost in that old, crumbling house, and that ghost turns out to be Jinho himself. However, Jin Young feels refreshed because of cleaning up the house and then being released from there finally. Jinho informs him that his future is already decided and determined because they have to leave and travel to the United States soon enough. Jin Young responds and says that the visa has not been processed and has not come out yet, and he does not know and is not sure where he will sign a contract with a team. He mentions and says that they should talk about and discuss the major league entry after they meet up with Yunseo first. Jin Young then goes into the reserve force training camp, and instead of doing the actual training there like he is supposed to, he actually ends up teaching everyone how to dance and shout his famous Wu cheer. 3 days have passed by. Jinho is completely exhausted because he can't handle it anymore. He thinks to himself that it was a real hell filled with Wu sounds for 2 nights and 3 whole days straight. Jin Young comments and says that he is not popular or well liked with girls at all, but at least he can be an idol and role model for the boys and guys around him. On his way out, Jin Young gets approached by Yunseo in her red Porsche. She says that they still have something to discuss, but Jin Young asks her if he can change his clothes first. Later that night, Jin Young and Yunseo go to a restaurant to have dinner. Jinho tells Jin Young that this is his change, so he should give it a try, and if he does as he taught him, he will be the son-in-law of a chaebol. However, Jin Young tells him that it's coming from a man who can't even have a dating rumor in his lifetime. Yunseo then says that she came to keep a promise that if he wins just 3 games in the Korea series, she will grant him any wish. She then asks him to tell her his wish, as she wants to give him anything he desires. Jinho then asks Jin Young if she is really interested in him, so he should just tell her that they should date each other. Jin Young then tells her that his wish is to lend the power of Vice Chairman Yunseo of Hyunsung Group so that he can enter the major league successfully. Yunseo replies that it is difficult to provide visible and full-scale support, and since he is not affiliated with the Angels anymore, there is not much they can do for him. At best, they can put an advertisement on the billboard of the team where Jin Young joined up with. Moreover, she informs him that they can make and appoint Jin Young as an executive of one of the Hyunsung Group affiliates and branches in the United States. She explains and clarifies that there is no conservatism or traditional restrictions involved, but executives of the Hyunsung Group can receive and get the corresponding treatment and benefits that match their position. All the affiliates and the headquarters will come forward to help Jin Young's life in the United States, and an executive of the Hyunsung Group gets a personal dedicated secretary assigned to them. After listening to all of that information being shared, Jin Young gets surprised, but she tells him that the secretary will assist and help with everything from contract negotiations to his daily life and everyday activities he does. Yunseo then reveals that the current best secretary in Hyunsung Group is someone special, but then she gets surprised to see Jin Young's reaction to it. He then asks her what the name of the current best secretary of Hyunsung Group is, so Yunseo replies that it is Lee Young-ae working there. Hearing that, both Jin Young and Jinho get excited because Lee Young-ae is a redhead baddie they know about. The next day, 2 staff members who work for Hyunsung Group are sitting together at a cafe, and one of them tells the other person that the Stove League is going to start pretty soon. He asks his colleague about how many phone calls he receives, and he explains that because Jin Young is on the market right now, he thinks there is a lot of chaos and confusion happening in the major league about this whole situation. The other guy then tells him that he receives 30 phone calls, and this number really shocks and surprises the first employee when he hears it. After hearing about these 30 calls, the guy starts thinking about what this number actually means, and he figures out that since it is exactly 30 calls and not more or less, it seems like the scouts who usually call first are not making any calls at all, and only the highest bosses and top brass people from different teams are the ones who are contacting him directly about this matter. The other guy replies that they probably felt rushed since they didn't expect and anticipate Jin Young to become available and free so soon and quickly. On the other hand, the other guy says to him that if he doesn't pay attention and stay focused, then he is not qualified and suitable to be a major league general manager at all. He adds that they are talking and discussing about a pitcher who throws and pitches over 100 pitches at speeds of 150 km per hour without getting tired or exhausted, and he hasn't allowed and given up a single point throughout the entire season so far. He then thinks that Jin Young can join and sign with any of the 30 major league teams if he wants and desires to, but if he doesn't handle things carefully and thoughtfully, he might just get eaten up and taken advantage of by others. He then asks the other guy what's the plan, as Angels need to put some effort, but the guy replies that they have assigned Lee Young-ae. It turns out, Lee Young-ae is not a girl but a massive-looking guy who looks like a monster. On the other hand, Lee Young-ae introduces himself to Jin Young and tells him that he really respects him a lot. Jin Young and Jinho are both wondering about how he actually manages to fit inside that suit he is wearing, so Jin Young decides to ask him directly if he is a former professional athlete or not. Lee Young-ae responds by saying that he likes sports and enjoys them, but he is definitely not an athlete himself. He also mentions that he is really scared of violence and blood, so whenever he sees blood anywhere, he faints right away without any warning. He goes on to explain that during his study abroad experience in the United States, which happened when he was in high school at that time. He was playing football as a club activity with other students, and during one of the games he collided with another player who started bleeding very heavily from the impact. Lee Young-ae then suggests that they should get started right now with discussing his entry into the United States market and all the details about it. However, Jin Young tells him to stop, saying that they already checked his experience through his profile, but what's important now is what help he can provide him immediately. Lee Young-ae then gives a brief explanation about everything and asks Jin Young what's the most important thing for him in his major league entry. Jin Young tells him that he wants to find a team where he can play the kind of baseball he used to play in the past, and what this means is that he wants a team where all the fans and players are going to shout, "Woo," at the top of their lungs with excitement whenever he strikes out batters during games. Lee Young-ae then explains that what they need to do right now is categorize and sort all 30 teams into 2 different types of categories, and these categories include the team that Jin Young actually wants to play for and the team that is willing to pay up to $100 million in order to acquire him for their roster. After saying this, he suddenly starts using his phone without any explanation, which confuses everyone, so Jin Young asks him what exactly he is doing right now with his phone. Lee Young-ae reveals to them that he just sends a message to all the reporters who are waiting outside for news, and in this message he asks them to start writing articles about this meeting and situation. Lee Young-ae then asks Jin Young if he can ask him a personal question, so Jin Young quickly says yes because he got scared after looking at the guy's expression. Lee Young-ae asks him if he prefers the National League or the American League, so Jin Young quickly responds without hesitation that he prefers the National League over the other option. Lee Young-ae then asks Jin Young why exactly he chooses the National League out of the 2 choices. Jin Young replies that in places where there are designated hitters who bat instead of pitchers, he is not going to be able to act up and show his personality on the mound at all, but in the National League, as long as he is prepared and willing to get hit by pitches when he bats, he can act up as much as he wants without any problems. Lee Young-ae then tells Jin Young to check the portal website right away, but when Jin Young actually checks it, it turns out that all the trending news are saying that Jin Young is going to Japan instead of staying in America. Afterward, Jin Young asks him if it is really advantageous and beneficial to enter the Japanese league first, because he understands how the major league posting system works pretty well already. Lee Young-ae tells him clearly that he should go straight to the major league without any stops in between. But Jin Young asks him what exactly is going on with all the drama and news that is spreading all over the internet right now. Lee Young-ae explains to him that this whole situation is about leveraging and using the market by using the media as a tool, because Jin Young's value has now reached a minimum of 5 billion yen in the eyes of teams and scouts. This means that now, all the major league clubs are going to have to adjust their strategies and their offers to match that amount of money if they want to sign him. Jin Young suddenly realizes that this guy Lee Young-ae is actually like a cunning and clever fox who knows exactly what he is doing. Later on, Jinho tells Jin Young that it is probably going to be better if he quickly decides and makes up his mind about which club he wants to go to, because otherwise, that bear-like guy Lee Young-ae might actually fold his spine in half from all the stress and pressure. Jinho then mentions that Lee Young-ae is actually quite knowledgeable and knows a lot about the financial status and internal affairs of each individual club in the league. However, Jin Young starts thinking to himself that if he just wants to join a club that has the best chance of winning the World Series next year, it is obviously going to be the Dodgers without any doubt. Jin Young then decides to ask Jinho where exactly he is interested in playing, so Jinho responds by saying that New York sounds like a pretty good idea to him. After hearing this, Jin Young thinks that Jinho means he wants to play for a team where the legendary pinstripe uniform is worn by players and the so-called evil empire is present in that organization. Jin Young tells him directly that he should not go there to that team, but instead he should consider going to the team of the Giants. Jinho says that the Giants haven't won a World Series in more than 30 years, and he thinks this shows that the team is basically hopeless right now. He explains that the Giants have 3 young right-handed starters who look very promising, and all 3 of them can throw pitches that go over 100 miles per hour without any trouble. He says their potential in the big leagues is hard to even describe, and he believes he will rule there like a king. He also thinks that if he joins a team full of skilled players, then when their talent finally bursts out, the Giants pitchers might even end up becoming the greatest group in Major League history. Just then, Lee Young-ae calls Jin Young and tells him that they are going to schedule a convenient date after December 11th to choose the desired club among the 30. Meanwhile, New York Bears general manager is going crazy over recruiting Jin Young, so he sends all the scouts together and finds a way to meet Lee Young-ae. Later that day, Jin Young finally arrives at the airport where he runs into Yunseo and Junhyang who are waiting there for him. They tell him that they came all the way here to see him off and say goodbye, so it is really rude of him to keep them waiting for 30 whole minutes like this. Yoonseo greets Jin Young warmly and tells him to make sure he shouts, "Woo," in the United States as well when he plays there, but then Junhyang leans in close and whispers quietly to Jin Young to wait for him in the United States because he will join him soon. Jin Young then has to leave because he has a flight to catch and cannot miss it, but on his way through the airport, reporters starts asking him to tell them the name of the club that he is going to sign a contract with soon. Lee Young-ae quickly comes forward and moves to block all the reporters from asking Jin Young about these personal questions and details. Jin Young then tells all of them that there is only one thing that he can say to them right now at this moment. After that, Jin Young finally leaves for the United States saying, "Woo," loudly to all the reporters who are there. How long do you think it will take for Jin Young to conquer the major leagues? Comment, "Shoo," if you're ready to follow his journey to the World Series. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more sports manhwa content.